And I want something somewhat close to the sucker punches, so I'm going to do a little trick here. Could be considered an exploit. Or it could be considered a trick. Depends on how you look at it.
Why do I have 2 hornets?
Probably one's rented? I don't know.
No.
And one might be a stand-in for something.
Yeah. I don't think I have any ships I need stand-ins for.
Yeah, all the ships are nice. I think the $45 starter ships are actually pretty awesome. I mean, they may not perform in whatever function you think they're going to perform in, like, say, dogfighting. They may perform underperform in that, but they still look awesome, their models are awesome, and they're completely functional in the universe. They'll do a fine job. In case you're curious, what I just did, I just replaced the nose gun on the Avenger, which is not something a lot of people think you can do. You actually can do that. And what I've done is I've taken the size 3 gimbal that is sitting on the Hornet's wing, has to be the one off the Hornet, and I've placed it on this nose slot of the Avenger. And you can actually put a size 2 gun on there, and I did that so I could get a gun that's relatively close grouping with these sucker punches, which will be helpful for some of the lessons we'll be talking about today. Only now I lost my Badger.
So I am not very familiar with the Hornet. Should I just stick with stock for now?
Yeah, just stick with stock.
Okay.
We won't be doing tons of shooting, so... Where'd it go? Dang it. It's gonna be a jerk, isn't it? I'll use a Badger or a Bulldog. Oh no, it doesn't like it. Only wants the Badger. Hey, Wormdrake. Use a referral code if you haven't made an account yet. Yes, the referral code will give you UEC. It'll give you, what is it? Oh, there. Hey, look at that. 5,000 UEC. That's how much the referral code will get you. Now, you can't spend that on anything just yet, but I think pretty soon you're going to be able to, and that includes in-game stuff like guns, weapons for the ship. I think you're going to actually be able to start spending some of that soon. That's my theory, anyway. Alright, I'm going to close this and see if I get these repeaters back. We're going to move in kind of slow because I want to give people time to get to the stream today. There it is. Just need to reset. There we go. Anybody want to be added to my friends list while I'm in the hangar? Yeah, What is it? Invisibablu. Bablu. That's going to be really hard for me for some reason. Yeah, the Aurora is decent. It's actually fairly decent in combat. This is the ship. If you wanted to see the Aurora up close, I actually have it right here in the hangar. It's actually fairly decent at combat. It has, especially the LN. The LN has 4 weapons, which is actually pretty good. It can carry 4 missiles. It's relatively durable. It flies a little wonky. Its flight performance isn't great, but it's well armed. And it's pretty durable. Excuse me. All right, who would like to join us here? In a Spectrum match, we're gonna go to private match. The other reason to do free flight is because there's no timer on free flight, so we can sit in there as long as we want. Did I pass it? Yes. Chat is creepily quiet right now. It's kind of scary.
Everyone's sleeping.
Evidently. I haven't even started my lecture yet, guys. Jeez. Are you ready to go, Miss Hearts?
Yeah.
I don't want one of these. I want one of these.
I seem kind of loud on your stream.
Let me see if I turn you down a little bit. Oddly, I actually already have you turned down. Bring you down to... let's try 50%.
I mean, I could be like the voice of God on your stream.
35%. We'll see how that goes. It's still too loud. I can adjust it.
Down on my end, too.
Anybody else? Nobody? Nobody?
Bueller.
Bueller.
Okay, I turned it down on my end a bit, too.
Alright, cool. Will you put this on YouTube? Yeah, I sure can. I sure can. The difficulty with putting my streams on YouTube is that they're 3 hours long, because there's a lot of in-between stuff. I can try and edit it down a little bit if there's stuff I can edit down for it. But like I said, this is the 101. This is the start of things. So we're gonna start pretty simple. I used to dogfight World War II airplanes online for 15 years. I did that for a number of years myself too. I don't know which games you played, but I played the Air Warrior set and Aces High. Those were my games. I was much better at Air Warrior, much better known in Air Warrior than I was at Aces High. I took a break from Air Warrior and came back and realized everybody who was playing Air Warrior had just switched to Aces High. I had never stopped playing, and they had gotten a lot better than I was. But I still put a valid effort in. Warbird first, then Aces High. Alright, cool.
Aegis combat assist activated. Systems green.
Alright, we're gonna turn off look ahead mode. Lock up our gimbals here. Weapons test. Looks good.
Contact. Begin scan.
Little case of the jitters. Not too bad. Alright, so the first thing before you go and you jump in and you're trying to do advanced tactics against another ship, before you do anything, you need to understand, well, the first thing you need is controls. You need to make sure you have access to all of your dogfighting controls. Normally, this wouldn't be a big deal in a standard flight sim, but in a space sim, it's a huge deal to understand your controls. And it's one of the most common mistakes I see very new pilots do when they come into this game, and that's that they've got their throttle set up, they understand pitch and yaw, they understand the basics, and so they throttle up to 100, which is what I've done here, and they just fly around. I mean, you can get everywhere on the map with 100% throttle and just using pitch and yaw. You can fly everywhere. Unfortunately, this is not what you want to do when you dogfight. You definitely don't want to set 100% throttle. You definitely don't want to limit your maneuvers to just pitch and yaw. Your motion is very predictable. It's really easy to trick you, to get you to do things you don't want to do when you're stuck with this limited set. So the first thing you want is you want to make sure you have the ability to control your throttle, to up and down your throttle if you need to, or in the case of how Ms. Hartz and I use it, to use forward and backward strafe to control your throttle. That's going to control your engagement distance for most opponents, so it's really important to understand that. More important than even that is the ability to strafe. You need to have those controls on lockdown, and you need to be using them. If you feel like you're not using strafe very much, and you're not doing very well in dogfights, which that should be the case if you're not using strafe very much, start using strafe. So make sure you have your strafe up, strafe left, down, all of those strafe keys. You will understand exactly how your ship performs when you're strafing. All of those keys. Make sure you have all of that. And you want to have reverse thrust too. Make sure you have strafe backwards, strafe forward. You have all of your degrees of motion, all 6 degrees of motion completely available, and you're not adept. You don't have to be adept yet, but you know how to use them. You know what buttons there are that use them, that activate them, and you're able to transition between those buttons fairly seamlessly. You don't want any of these keys off on a different key set, or using the same finger, or off on a different keyboard's position. You want these really, really close and accessible. So when you get into free flight, this is always what you should do. I'm a big advocate of the free flight. That's always where people should start. When you get into free flight, you start using those keys to control your ship. Don't limit your controls. Think, I want to strafe left, I want to strafe up here. You know, keep practicing using all of those controls and seeing what they do, how they move your ship. And do not forget about roll. There's a tendency in a spaceship game to forget about roll. And you'll see people do this a lot. You'll see people who just don't roll ever, because you don't technically have to. Don't forget about roll. It's very, very important. We'll talk about that a little bit later, why that's important, but it is very, very important. Hey, there's Drafe. We're in our Discord channel, Drafe, if you want to join us. So those are all the things you need to have access in your controls. And we talked about this when we did our new pilot, our rookie pilot stream, which is on YouTube, by the way, if you want to watch that. And the first part is really important. That's what keys you want to have bound. Make sure you have that set before you even try to dogfight. You have all that kind of stuff bound. You have target nearest hostile, target friendly. You have weapon group 1 and weapon group 2 bound, so you can fire weapons separately. You have all that stuff in. You need it. You absolutely need it. And that's the first lesson in any dogfighting, is to have all those controls. Thank you, Miss Ernst. So yeah, the first couple lessons, Miss Hartz is going to be bored watching because I'm not going to use her ship.
That's okay.
You still put your nose down to gain speed. That's one of the things that Drafe mentioned this briefly. If you come from a lot of atmospheric games, that's not bad. Some of that knowledge and that ship control is actually really helpful to you. Especially if you're used to using a joystick, it's going to be a slower or shallower learning curve for you to use your joystick. However, some of that stuff is going to work against you. And we'll talk about that in the next section, so we just finished talking about controls. And that's really ship knowledge and knowledge of how the performance of the space flight actually works. You need that knowledge to understand dogfighting. The first is the knowledge of how space flight actually works. And the hardest thing the folks coming from atmospheric games have a hard time getting used to is that where your nose is pointing does not indicate where your ship is going. Those two things function completely separately from one another. Where your ship is moving towards is not related to where your nose is pointing, and that takes a while for people to get used to. And when you load into Arena Commander, and a lot of the Arena Commander veterans know this, when you're in Arena Commander, you'll see people and you can just tell by the way they're flying, that's a flight sim person who's not used to this game yet. Because usually they have their throttle all the way up, which I mentioned before, and they're just doing these kind of slow turns to try and get around, and they don't quite understand that they don't need to do these slow turns. You know, they're trying to maneuver in and out of asteroids all the time, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but that's their whole evasion maneuver, like they're going to get back around on somebody's tail at some point, and they never will. So it's important to understand that. Fortunately, the game has a way for it to indicate that. So one of the keys to understanding spaceflight is, well, it's easy to see where your nose is pointing, because that's where your view is pointing. It's also marked by this little crosshair right here, which is now a double crosshair. That's a recent change. That's where your nose is pointing. If you're using fixed weapons, that's where your guns go, right into the middle of that crosshair. So that's how you're actually going to aim your weapons too. If you're wondering what vector, what travel path your ship is on, let me give a little bit of throttle. There's this little circle right here in the middle. This is called the TVI, the Total Velocity Indicator. And it has a little chevron pointing up right here. Let me make my cursor a little bigger with the circle. This circle right here. I can shift it off to the left by strafing left. You can kind of see that circle a little bit. Has that little chevron right there. That's indicating that's a forward motion. This is indicating the direction of your ship's travel. As I turn, you can see that direction will drift off to the side. That's saying that my nose is pointed this way, but my travel direction is actually going slightly different from my nose. And if I
just
Sorry?
noticed I don't have that.
Are you moving?
Oh, there we go. Now I wasn't moving. Never mind.
If you're not moving,
Never
you won't
mind.
see it.
I'm like, where'd it go? Well, I was strafing up, but
yeah, so if you strafe in one direction, it basically the total velocity indicator is up. So sometimes you can't see it, and that is actually an important thing to know. So if I strafe up, you can watch it go up, 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 and now it's... Wait, I haven't gotten rid of it yet. Hold on, let me slow down my throttle. There it is. Now it's completely off my screen. I cannot see it anymore. That's because it's actually on top of my ship right now. So sometimes you won't necessarily see it, and we'll talk about how to read your direction of travel without it.
Mic check.
Yep,
Hello.
got you.
Awesome.
Hello, Dre.
Good deal. Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday.
Indeed. Indeed. Drafe will be assisting me as well today. Alright, so that's your total velocity indicator. Also, as a note, it indicates a point of velocity. So let me show you what I mean. If I decouple here, there's that velocity indicator. So now that I'm decoupled, I can move my nose completely independently of that direction. I'm going to continue to drift in that direction because I'm decoupled, and I can actually see what direction I'm moving. When you're decoupled, you can actually shift this direction by using strafe. So if I want to go over here, now I'm going that way. Does not matter what direction my nose is pointing. Let's say I kind of want to go between this spot and the station. All right, I'm just going to move that TVI right into there, and that's where I'm going to go now. Don't have to worry about where my nose is pointing at all to move this way. It's really, really important to understand that. If I look behind me, you'll see the same symbol in the reverse direction. But if you look, the chevron is now pointed down. That indicates that this is a direction of backwards travels, not forwards travel. So there's a TVI for both, backwards and forwards. So this is directly behind me, spin around. That's what I'm moving away from, essentially. This is what I'm moving towards. So that's one way to figure out what direction your ship is traveling in. The other way, Star Citizen and CIG have been kind enough to give us lots and lots of space dust. There's no such thing as space dust, by the way. But it's super important in a game like this for the gameplay, because otherwise you won't be able to figure out your direction of travel. You'll have no sense of speed. How to decouple? Decouple is the caps lock key by default. So I'm going to decouple here. We're going to take a look at the space dust. So ignore the TVI here and look at the space dust. The space dust is also telling me which direction I'm going. So right now, I can't see my TVI, but if I look at the space dust, I can kind of tell I'm traveling to the left. If I start to strafe up, look at the space dust shifting.
Warning.
Uh-oh.
You are
Boundary.
approaching simulation boundary.
Let's not hit the boundary. So this is a nice thing to sort of practice and get used to seeing in your peripheral vision. You don't stare at it, don't focus on it, obviously.
Contact. Begin scan.
But just shifting around and decouple, shifting that total velocity indicator, and watching that space dust move. It's telling me the direction of my ship motion. Cosmic dust does exist. I don't think you see it though. But you'd have such a hard time getting a sense of speed without it. So I'm glad they have that in there. It's really tough to get a sense of direction too. This is what the space does look like if I'm going backwards. So it should feel pretty natural. So that's how you're going to read your ship's motion relative to the nose of your ship, because those two, again, function completely independently. Which means that you need to think of two different concepts: rotation and a turn. So when I want to rotate completely around, all I have to do is picture y'all all the way around, and I've made a rotation. However, if I want to turn, I need to turn this direction of motion, this total velocity indicator, all the way around. And that's different. So for instance, if I'm looking at the station, I do a rotation, the Avenger's going to rotate it around in roughly about 6 seconds. But if I use the total velocity and I want to make a turn, that's going to take a little bit longer for me to get that all the way around. And how I get that around is going to vary based on different ship types. If you want that total velocity indicator to be better linked to the nose of your ship, I don't use this very much, but you can turn on ComStab and it will be.
I use ComStab.
I don't use it very much. But now you can see as I'm turning, what's happening here is that ComStab is slowing down my ship so that this TVI will keep up with the nose of my ship better. So you'll be able to make cleaner, better turns when you're in ComStab. How were you able to change the TVI when you were decoupled? What do you mean change it? Oh, I was using strafe to change its motion. So when I'm decoupled, the TVI is basically going in the direction I was originally traveling, which is right here. If I want to change that direction, all I have to do is strafe. So if I strafe left, I'm going to shift that direction because I'm going to continue moving that motion in decoupled until I counter that motion. I'm going to shift it to that side. If I want to counter that, just go back the other way, strafe right. And I can move the TVI. I can move it down by strafing down. If I ever want to slow down, I just basically put my nose in the TVI and I start to reverse strafe, and I'll start to slow down until I come to a near stop and reverse my motion. Now you can see that chevron is pointed down, indicating I'm going to reverse. And the separation between the motion of your ship and the nose of your ship is really important, because the nose of your ship indicates where your guns are pointing and also where your enemy's guns are pointing, but it does not indicate their direction. So it's very important to wrap your head around that. It means that as you're flying, you have to track both of those. It's really easy to track the nose of your ship. It's basically your view. But it can be a little trickier to track the direction your ship is traveling in. And a lot of times, yeah, this is difficult. This is difficult for me. I run into asteroids all the time because I've lost track of my direction a little bit, didn't realize what I was doing. This is tricky. Hey, Red Menace, how's it going? I believe that's the default Copa Pod. I've actually, when we did our rookie stream, I showed how I rebind all of those. So I've rebound it so it's just S and W. Because I'm using absolute strafe directions rather than throttle directions. Alright, so the other piece of basic flight information, now that you understand how ships generally move in space, you need to understand how your ship moves. Every ship is very, very different. And this is part of the test we always run when we get a different ship to test out. You guys vote me into certain ships, and I go through and do a test on it. Part of those tests is trying to figure out what its preferred thrust direction is. Ships have lateral thrusters, and then they have vertical thrusters or normal thrusters. Most of the spaceships have more thrusters on the top and bottom than they do on the side. It's just a matter of surface area for most of them. Not all of them do, though. And it's important to know just how asymmetrical your ship's thrust happens to be. So in the case of the Avenger, I can usually test this by just strafing straight up, shifting to strafing down, and just counting it out. Seeing how long it takes me to cancel all of that inertia. And then do the same thing on the left side. And I think with the Avenger, it's pretty close to even. But for most ships, it's actually going to be in the normal direction. I believe for the Hornet, it's in the normal direction. For the Gladius, it's in the normal direction. Which means that you're going to have stronger thrust on the top and bottom than you do on the side. That's really important to know. It's important to know for obstacle avoidance. It's important to know for ship control. If you really need to get your ship to change vector quickly, to move this TVI quickly, that's the pattern you want to be in. So for instance, if I fly towards an asteroid and my ship drifts heavily in the lateral direction, I don't want to do a yaw turn to try to avoid it. I'm going to keep drifting directly towards that asteroid. What I want to do is I want to do a pitch turn so that I put my best thrusters towards it and then try to bring that total velocity indicator around. That's really nice to know. Excuse me. And another quick way to kind of test that, this is not as, I don't think this is as good as doing a strafe test, but let's say you're in a combat situation for whatever reason you forgot and you need to do a quick test, is to do a diagonal turn. So basically try to get an equal amount of pitch and yaw and then watch your TVI. So if I go straight diagonal and then accelerate, do you see the direction the TVI travel? It goes laterally and then up and down. The slower direction is actually where your weaker thrust is. So actually it looks like I'm just a little bit weaker in the normal direction than I am in the lateral direction. So actually the stronger thrust on the Avengers in the lateral direction. Show it again so you can see that. It's pretty close on this ship. It is pretty close. Just slightly stronger in the lateral direction than the normal direction. Okay, other parts of knowing your ship. Know your ship's top speed. So the Adventure's got a really good top speed right now. This varies by what loadout you're using, but it won't vary by a massive amount. So my top speed is 255. My Afterburner top speed is 390. That's actually fairly good. By itself, that's not super useful. But if you start gaining some knowledge of the other ships, anytime there's a free fly week, please take out those other ships and run these tests with them. Even if you don't ever plan on flying them, it's nice to know. Miss Hartz, what's your top speed and Afterburner speed?
200 and Afterburner 300.
So the Hornet that Miss Hartz is flying has 200 and the Afterburner is 300, which means that if I'm in trouble against a Hornet, I'm much faster than a Hornet. especially afterward. I'm moving 90 meters per second faster. So if I'm not winning a fight against a Hornet, or if I'm in a bad spot, my shields are down, they're using energy weapons, and I need to get some distance, I can use my speed to do that. But the only way you know that is if you know the other ship's top speed. So it's important to go out and test that. If a particular ship is kicking your butt a lot, see if you can get a hold of that ship sometime. Even if it's just, and I don't advocate this, but even if it's just stealing it in the Crusader, finding someone's ship because you don't have the rec for it, swapping, just ship swap. We'll use ship swap. Do so. It'll help you know the difference between your ship and theirs. I think if you're doing evasion, scissors might work. But I don't actually think scissors is very effective. I don't think most ACMs are super effective.
The reason scissors is effective in atmospheric flight or, traditional dogfighting, because you only have one direction of travel, and most importantly, your direction of travel is the same direction that your guns are facing. In space, in Arena Commander and Star Citizen, you can be flying one direction and pointing a different direction. And also, point of scissors is to get behind your target, or in Star Citizen, getting behind your target is not as important because they can just flip around pretty easily and shoot right back at you. And also, ideally, you want, and I'm sure Barrow will talk about this later, but ideally you want to be on top or on the bottom of your target because that's where the biggest cross-section is and that's where the biggest target is. So actually getting behind your target, which is sort of what's happening in the scissors, granted you are kind of getting on top and below your target a little bit with the scissors, but the ultimate goal is to get on their tail. It's not really the goal in Star Citizen dogfighting.
Yep, that is exactly right. And that does bring me to my next point in the know your ship section, and that's know what your ship looks like. And that doesn't seem like it's important. Oh my gosh, it's so important to know what your ship looks like. And know what your ship looks like from different angles. So go to your external view, double tap Alt so that you can get a free look, and then look at your ship straight on, from the side, from the back, from the top of the ship. And of course, the top is going to look pretty similar to the bottom most of the time, but also from the bottom of your ship. And then think about how big of a target your ship is in each of those directions. So again, there's the back of the ship, the side, the front, top, and bottom. For the vast majority of these ships, the top and the bottom is going to be the big section of your ship, which means as you're flying, you do not want to show your opponent the top and bottom of your ship. You do not want to do that. You're making a bigger target. So it's important to know that. It's important to know where your ship is smallest. So for instance, most ships, it's going to be from the front in some angle. From the Avenger, it's very, very small from the front. For a ship like the Aurora, it's absolutely tiny from the front. From the side, it's a little bit bigger. It's a long ship, and actually the Avenger has a pretty big side cross-section compared to some other ships like the Gladiator, which is a very narrow side cross-section. And from the back, most ships are actually pretty small from the back, but it's generally still a good spot to shoot someone because they can't put their guns on target. Tap Alt. Let me go take a look at Ms. Hart's ship. Hey, Average Joe, how's it going? No, and if I had planned ahead, I should have grabbed a Vin. I haven't seen Vin in a while, though. So this is Miss Hart ship. This is a Hornet. This is a pretty standard opponent, especially right now. You're going to see a lot of Hornets. It's also one of the most popular ships in the game, in the Hornet series. The Hornet is a pretty big ship. And that's one of its few weaknesses right now, and that's a consistent weakness. That's never going to change. The Hornet is always going to be, relative to other small fighters, big. Because it's going to be big, it's a big target. So it's pretty easy, actually, most of the time, to get hits on a Hornet. From the front, it's relatively small, but the wingspan is actually pretty wide. From the top, the Hornet is absolutely huge. It's a really, really big target. It's very easy to hit it from that side. From the side, it's mostly a square-shaped ship, so it's about the same from the front and, of course, from the back as well. Awesome. Glad you got it. Glad you got it, Average Joe. But, again, important to know this relative. I know that my ship is a little bit smaller than that Hornet. So I know I'm a tougher target to hit, and that's important to know. Size in this game is another kind of armor. It's one of those things that's kind of forgotten about a lot. For instance, the Aurora seems pretty tough. The M50 seems pretty tough. The Merlin seems pretty tough sometimes. They're not tough, really. Actually, the Aurora is a little tough. Copapod, thank you for the follow. Those ships are just small. Because they're small, you could be shooting right into this little box right here, and there's a really good chance you're going to miss, because actually that ship occupies very little of that box. They're just really tiny targets. You have to be point on to hit them. Some weapons, like the Badger, all of the repeater sets, the Badger, Bulldog, and Panther, actually fire at a spread. I don't know if you can see that there, but you can actually see my Badger here firing in a spread. That's nice when you're shooting at a big ship, because it's going to give you a little bit of fudge room where you're going to be able to hit. When you're shooting at a tiny ship, that spread actually works against you, and a lot of your shots are actually going to miss that ship just because of the spread. Even if you're on target, you'll miss. This used to be one of my favorite tricks in one of the patches, because the Gatlins used to have spread. They don't anymore, and the Mantises were really, really popular, and I used to fly a Merlin at a just straight at a Mantis Hornet, and they would spray at me and just couldn't hit me. Their spread would just go completely around the ship because it was so small, and I would just pick them apart with it. It was really, really fun, actually. So yeah, that's the basics of controls, of understanding spaceflight, and of knowing your ship. Know your ship's size, know your ship's thrust directions, preferred thrust direction, and understand that your nose operates independently from the direction of travel of your ship. When you're actually engaged in a combat situation, and I'll just talk about this briefly, and then we're going to reset to see if anybody wants to join us, and so I can take a break from blabbing on so much. When you're actually engaged in combat in a ship, there is what I call the basic combat stance, and the basic combat stance is this. It's two ships facing one another. This is the starting combat stance. Foible! Yes! Foible has become a junior scientist. Thank you, Foible.
Awesome!
Neat.
Science.
I get to listen to Shatner sing about science. Love it.
It's poetry in motion. She turned her tender eyes to me as deep as any ocean.
Foible, thank you very much. And congratulations on becoming a junior scientist. You're now entered into the monthly raffle for a ship. With really good chances, because I think we have a small handful of junior scientists right now. Really good chances to win that. So thank you, Foible. So yeah, most combat is going to take place in that basic stance.
That's funny, Red Menace.
Required to wear lab coats during the stream. Oh, okay. That is a requirement. Technically I'm not a member, you know, I don't have to, but... yeah, this is the basic stance, ship facing one another. Everything you do is going to start at this stance. When you do a maneuver, you get a few shots in, you're always going to reset to this stance at some point. Unless the target is actually actively trying to extend away from you, most of the time you're going to find yourself in this stance. So I might maneuver around, and sometimes I might get a different angle, but constantly I know Ms. Hartz is turning her nose towards me. So even if I get a different angle, at some point we're going to get back to being nose to nose. And this is really important because this cancels a lot of people's ideas of what you can do to evade. You're always facing one another. Not always, there's going to be little windows when you're not, but you're going to be facing one another a lot. Even in older flight models where ships had stronger thrusters, you were still facing one another a lot of the time. So this is the basic start of most combat situations, is this little stance, this head-on stance. Alright, I am going to back out and see if anybody wants to join our lobby here, and then I'm going to take a talking break, and also see if anybody has any questions before we get to the next part. Look, we haven't even shot at anybody yet. Isn't that crazy?
I should have shot you before I exited out.
Probably.
Hey, Gamble.
Hey, Gamble. By the way, question, did they recently change the targeting mode? I used to see squares and triangles. The targeting mode is based on the different kinds of weapons. Average Joe Gamer has become a junior scientist. Woohoo!
Awesome.
Average Joe, you're awesome.
Science.
I need to find a better gift for that, even though I like it.
It's poetry in motion. She turned her tender eyes to me as
Yes, thank you, Average Joe.
deep as any ocean.
Yeah, baby.
And welcome to the Junior Scientist Club. I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, the weapons. The weapons, what shape the pip is basically what kind of weapon you're using. Triangle is ballistic cannon. Diamond is ballistic Gatling. Square is repeater, which includes the ballistic repeater sawbucks. And oddly enough, it includes the rail guns. I have no idea why, but it does. So the mass drivers also use a square. And then
They ran out of shapes.
They ran out of shapes. What could they use? Like, I don't know, hexagon.
Nope, they're gone.
and then circle. Brickyard Gaming, thank you for the follow. Hey, Brickyard. And circle is laser cannon. That's also nice because it lets you know what's fired into what. So like your omnis are a circle, your neutrons are a circle, your bearing lasers are a circle. Rectangle, that would be really weird. I don't think that'd work very well.
Middle of the rectangle, the bottom.
I guess if your gun spread into a rectangle pattern, it would work. All right, who would like an invite to the next set?
Shoot. What do you want me to fly, by the way?
Well, let's just try and get a variety. Give me a Gladius.
No, I don't really like the Gladiator.
Yeah, nobody does.
Oh, little meta.
You can have the Hornet if you want. I actually own a Gladius.
Hell nah. I'm fine. I'm a Gladius. I'm being very sarcastic. I miss
Alright.
playing my Gladius so much.
I will turn
same here.
Drafe down a little bit, see if that makes it better.
I think you're just quieter than we are.
It could be the case. Move my microphone closer.
I just need to be heard, Bayor. I just need to be heard.
No. AKA,
I was saying earlier that I'm the voice of God.
That's fair. That's a...
it's my stream.
No ego
I'm
there.
the voice of God on my stream. Copapod. Do I have you? I might not have you on my list. I might have to go to the hangar. We're not in a big hurry today, so that's not a big deal. Oh no, I do have you. Sweet. Let me know when you're ready. I'll show you his offline, but let me know when you're ready for an invite, Copapod. We're going to be doing this in free flight private match. And for those of you who aren't, my demonstrators are Drafe and Ms. Harts. But if you're not demonstrating, you're just here to learn. Take whatever ship you want. Or take the ship that you actually want to dogfight in. We're not necessarily going to be doing... we might get to some like dogfights a lot later, but we're just going to be going through the basics, really. All right, Average Joe, you're on here something real weird, aren't you? Oh, we have plenty of spots. Let's That's weird. There it goes. It was showing 8 for a second, but I should. Yeah, we can have up to 12, so we got plenty of space. This is a PSA. The Avenger is the best ship in the game. Not right now. It is one of my favorite ships, though. I love the Avenger. All right, let me know when you're in, ready for an invite. I think everybody's getting the saber.
I'm not getting the saber because everyone's getting the saber.
That's exactly that's my thing. It's a weakness of mine. If it's really popular, I can't do it. Yeah.
Yep. Ship hipsters.
Or ship hipsters.
That's gonna be one of the ships I earn in a game. I like supporting the game, but I want to leave myself goals to earn once the persistent universe is fully blown.
Same. Although I think Frostbite's.
Yeah. Frostbite does not have the same philosophy for you.
So we got to think of a Frostbite's something hour or something for like a special segment for you to do on the stream.
Yeah. Frostbite sponsored segment. Frostbite's Arena Calendar Hour.
Frostbite presents in support with Pepsi Cola, something like that.
Yeah, I when the Saber
Kraken.
comes out, I think there's going to be a lot of Saber and Hornet.
You need to get. She's right. You need to get a Kraken sponsorship.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and launch what we got here. I
was
also
drinking.
think. Sorry, go ahead.
I was drinking Captain Morgan on stream last night, and I kept saying it should have been Kraken.
Yeah, Kraken. It's the official drink of Star Citizen. I think that the expectations for the Saber are getting close to impossibly high.
Yeah.
I think there's no way it's not going to disappoint people, especially since in the description it says it relies on stealth mechanics to do a lot of its work. And currently there really isn't stealth mechanics per se. There's accidental stealth mechanics right now. But there's not actual like stealth or signature work that's happening in the game right now. Because there's not, it's gonna be a ship that's not as tough as a Hornet, with a just amount of firepower that's as big as a Hornet, and I think that might actually turn out kind of badly. We'll see, but I think there's a lot of high expectations on the Saber, and we'll see what happens.
Some people will have high success just by virtue of the fact that it has a lot of guns, because, I mean, we've seen that. If somebody has good aims, they're going to be able to do decently, but I think you're right. I think it won't be what people envision it will be like. Just like a more nimble version of the Hornet is what I think a lot of people picture.
Yeah, but I think it's not going to be nearly as tough as a Hornet. Yeah, there was a time when the Ghost was kind of stealthy for missiles.
It does look sexy, though.
It does look good, yeah. And those are big guns, and big guns are always nice.
Oh, that's right. That's why I stopped flying the Gladius. Freaking floating in the cockpit bug.
Technically, you can keep ejecting. I mean, it's free flight all day.
But I'll know what my KDR is. Is it just me and you in here, Bayor?
I still haven't installed my SSD,
Yeah,
so I'm still loading.
Some people might be slow loading in.
I will do that later today.
There's Scarge.
Alright, eject again, get my HUD eventually.
Yes, Foible, that is the case. If it has strong shields, but they mentioned recently in Reverse the Verse that they're completely refactoring how shields work. So stay tuned for that, but yes, if it comes out before that is released, and it has strong shields, but weak armor, ballistics are going to rip it to shreds. which is part of the reason that small ships aren't doing very well. Shields are a significant portion of their health, and since people are using ballistics, they just kill them with full shields, so they're able to kill them. So that's part of the reason that happens. Okay, so let's start at the basic stance. Let's start with the Miss Hearts, and we'll start with some really basic stuff. So I'm gonna turn. We're gonna get nose to nose with Miss Hearts in the basic stance, even though she's nose to station right now, so that makes it hard. So the first major lesson when you're in a situation, when you're in a combat situation, what you want to do is always keep your nose on target. No matter what you read on the forums, don't turn away from the target unless you're actively trying to completely disengage. If you're in a duel, you're fighting back and forth, you're trading fire, continuously trade fire. If you turn away from the target, you're handing them the advantage. You're handing them the opportunity to shoot at you when they're not being shot back at. So always keep your nose on target. What you want to do is make it so that your nose is on target, but you've maneuvered in a way where their nose is no longer on target. That's what you want to do, but you never want to take your nose off target most of the time. So always try to keep that. Always try to keep them in your screen. Keep your pips on target, keep your nose on target, keep your guns close to target as much as possible. Now, to do that, one of the things you really don't want to necessarily do is always push into your target. And this is a lot of mistake new pilots make. So, let me, you use a lot of strafing, don't you, Miss Hearts?
Yes.
Okay, so what I want you to do, Miss Hearts, is I want you to just go to a standard dogfighting position with a lot of strafing.
You keep vanishing from my radar.
You keep going invisible.
Oh, hold on, I can fix that.
Ejecting.
I'm gonna just eject and reset my ship.
Quick, get him!
Yeah, they talked about physically based damage. I haven't heard anything about it in a while, but I think they're still working on that. That might come out with the item changes.
Begin scan.
Can you guys see me?
I
now?
thought they already implemented it.
I don't think so. I could be wrong.
Yes.
I don't think so. Cool. Okay, good. All right, so go ahead and engage me like you would in a random standard combat situation. Actually, you're not used to the horn at all, are you?
No.
Okay, let me do Drake. He's more used to the Gladius.
I would be flying this like an M50.
So I'm just gonna I'm basically gonna push towards you, Drafe.
Copy.
And you can see all I'm doing right here is I'm at 100% throttle and I'm just pushing at him. And he's strafing sideways, so his time on target is a little bit better than mine because he's strafing sideways. And this is what happens when you're constantly at 100% throttle, is this constant sort of jousting. And now you can see, even though I'm at 100% throttle, he's really keeping on target a little better than I am. And when I do this merge, since the Gladius can turn faster than the Avenger, he's actually able to get nose on me a little quicker. So you don't always want to joust. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing to joust. Some ships are going to be really good at this. But actually, this is causing a losing situation for me.
Proximity alert. Head.
So I'm going to throttle back down to 0 here. And the other situation you'll find yourself in, so that's how you end up in a joust, is you're constantly pushing forward into a target, and you're merging, spinning, merging, spinning, merging, spinning. That can be advantageous for some ships. It necessarily isn't. And also, when you do that, your motion is 100% predictable. You're at 100% throttle. Basically, you're on autopilot for throttle. So it becomes really easy for your opponent to predict exactly where you're going to be. You're just going to fly right at them with 100% throttle. You don't really want to do that.
Show them what it looks like. If pretend you're shooting at me, I'm engaged with someone else, and I'm in a jousting fight.
Okay.
What's going to happen is, pretend there's somebody in front of me, right? I'm going to go full speed at them. They're going to pass me. And now I'm going to turn back towards them. My velocity just went down to 0 there, and I'd probably be dead if they were being that close.
And he can, when he does that, so when he's doing these jousts, and every time he makes that 180-degree turn at 100% throttle, watch the pip distance from his ship. Tightens in, boom, on target. So easy for me to hit him in that spot. And I can actually show you that because I've got some sucker punches here, so I'm going to do some shots here at him while he's moving. A little harder for me to hit him there. Then he's going to get to a stop. I'm going to line up my guns right on him. And even though I didn't hit because he got a little far away from me, you can see how much easier he is to hit in that situation. And if I know he's doing it, I can line up right on top of him. See, his motion is exactly predictable when I do that. It's super, super predictable when he does that. You really want to avoid that, and you want to avoid any kind of motion that's going to cancel out all of your inertia, which is exactly what a 180-degree turn is doing when you're at full throttle. So if I make that 180-degree turn, I'm now turning against my inertia, canceling it completely out before I start moving again. You want to avoid that. You want to keep your ship moving as quick as possible, and another reason for that is you see, I think these two are not, this is not actually a good example. If I had two different weapons with two different speeds, those weapons are going to merge together. So my weapon pips are going to line up on that target when he gets slower like that. Which I guess the Sucker Punch and the Badger, I should have looked that up. Sucker Punch and Badger must have the same speed because I'm always getting a circle here. Big circle means your weapon pips have lined up, by the way. And that's what you see is this big circle. Your guns go where the dot is. Solus, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. So don't always do that. There are situations you want to do that. You can merge with a target, but just don't do a 180-degree turn like that, where you lose all of your inertia. Instead, what you probably want to do, what most people are going to do, is they're going to end up in these sort of stray fights, where you're circling around each other like this. You're always in each other's nose. You're constantly doing this sort of circle motion. I'm always trying to use sideways strafe. I know that my ship's guns don't necessarily equate to my ship's motion, and I'm trying to monitor my ship's motion by looking for the TVI and watching the space dust. And keep that space dust moving. As long as that space dust is moving, my pip is far from my ship, and I'm a harder target to hit. The moment I do something like counter my motion, watch the space dust. Dead stop right there. I'm an easy target right there. Super easy to hit me right there. Keep that space dust moving. That's your dogfight lesson. Keep space dust moving. So don't strafe into the direction of motion, which is what I did to stop the space dust. There I strafed into the direction of the motion. I made the space dust stop. Don't roll too far. So if you want to roll into this, if I roll too much, there you go. I'm barely moving right now. It looks like I'm doing stuff, but actually my ship isn't moving a whole lot. I've actually canceled a lot of my inertia by doing that. So when you're in a nose-on situation, strafe to the side, keep your motion up, strafe up, keep your motion moving. You can move forward if you want to, but be careful not to counter that motion. So if you want to do a merge, I'll show you how to do a merge with somebody. If you want to force a merge, you got better rotation. If you're in an M50, you kind of want to force a merge sometimes. Get in tight with them.
You just fly straight at you? Or
yeah, just fly straight at me.
Okay.
I'm going to merge, but rather than turning right at him, I'm going to strafe up and keep my motion going. So I'm not actually turning into my direction of travel. I want to merge with him. I'm going to slowly keep my motion going, add a little boost, then I'm going to strafe to the side as I get past him. That's going to continue my motion. It's going to continue my inertia. If you watch the space dust, it keeps moving. It does not stop.
And that's basically why the circle strafe that you saw just a second ago is so common right now. Because when two pilots understand that they need to keep moving the whole time, but they also understand that they need to keep their noses pointed at their opponent, this is exactly what it looks like. Because we're both trying to keep our velocity up, and we're both trying to keep our noses pointed at our target the whole time.
Now if I counter that with a full forward motion, and then I pass and do that turn again, watch the space dust. And there it is, dead stop for a second. And again, dead stop. You don't want that. You do not want that space dust to stop. Keep it moving. Keep your motion constant. Makes you a harder target. Keep changing directions though too, because if you just continuously strafe in one direction or you keep your motion's pretty predictable. The other thing I wanted to mention, and this is also super important for the initial engagement. So let's say you're starting in the basic stance. And I'll switch to Miss Hearts here because Miss Hearts is in that Hornet. She's a pretty big target. It's really easy to see this with the Hornet. So you're in the basic stance, you're facing one another. How do you approach your particular target in that situation? What I like to do is I like to pit my cross-section against their cross-section. What that means is I'm going to roll and strafe in a direction that's going to make their cross-section best for me and my cross-section worst for them. And normally what that means is I'm going to roll at a 90-degree angle. So if I'm looking at Miss Hearts, this is a 90-degree angle from her ship. And then I'm going to strafe to the top or to the bottom and force her to chase me in that direction. Right now, I'm a little target to her, and she's a big target to me. It's going to be a lot easier for me to hit in this situation. I'm going to try to maintain that particular posture as she's trying to chase me through this turn. So even if you're strafing nicely and doing all the right things, if you're not rolling to get your cross-section in an advantageous position or to get it out of a disadvantageous position, you could end up losing that circle strafe fight. And I could also do it towards the top of the ship. This is one of my favorite positions. Easier to see the cockpit then. And just strafe. Now, what it looks like... Try not to run into something. Let me think. What do we have here? Aurora. So I'm gonna with Drafe here. I'm gonna do a bad section. So I'm gonna steer into Drafe. Drafe, do what I was just describing, and I'll show them how small that target is now. So this is what I'm chasing. I'm looking at this really narrow section of this Gladius, and the Gladius is a good example of this because it's super small from this end. And this is a tough target. If I'm off by that much, I miss. If I'm off by this much, I miss completely. I am going to miss this target now. And what he's looking at is the top of my Avenger, which is actually, it's not huge, but it's fairly big. That's a target advantage for him. That's a huge target advantage.
Let's switch it.
And if we switch, now look at what I'm looking at from his ship. Much, much bigger target. I can see the cockpit easily. I can see most of his ship. If I have pips that are separated, I can put one pip on the nose and the other pip will be on his ass. So I'll be hitting with both. Very, very nice section of target there. Always try to keep that perpendicular setup like that. Always try to strafe towards wherever the target is biggest, which for all of the ships basically is the top and the bottom. And try to keep that even if they change. Some people don't realize that this is an advantage change, and they might just start to change their roll a little bit and try to keep it. They might roll sometimes. Try to keep that advantage.
Proximity alert. Port. Proximity alert. Head.
Rocks.
Perfect.
And that's what you want. You want to try and keep that section of the ship
Alert overhead.
in that view. You want to keep that top section at all costs. That's going to give you a big target. You want to keep your cross-section low. So that's what I mean by pitting the cross-sections against each other. And this is something that most pilots don't realize, and they don't really do. And that's why it's important to have those roll keys. You may think roll is not necessarily important, but it actually is pretty important. Now let's talk. I'm going to go over here with Average Joe over here in his Aurora. A lot of you guys might have starter ships.
Proximity alert. Head.
Hopefully Average Joe is still there, still with us. The Aurora is really small from the front. So if you can keep your nose on target with the Aurora, it's really hard to hit it. It's absolutely tiny from the front. So if you want to keep your nose on target, it's really, really nice to be able to do that. And this is the important part of knowing your ship. However, the Aurora has really bad rotation, just abysmal rotation, which means that this pitch and yaw is going to be really slow for the Aurora. And I can actually show you an example here with Scarge. I'm going to fly past him. He's going to spin around, try to get back on me, and you can see how slow that is. If you have a ship with slow rotation, like Aurora, don't merge. Try to avoid getting that merge at all costs. Other ships with slow rotation, actually the Avenger has pretty slow rotation, but this is also nice if you want to be a good Connie pilot or one of the bigger ships, because big ships are going to have slow rotation. If you want to be really good with those ships, don't let somebody merge with you. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone out and wrecked somebody's Connie with a fighter because they just let me merge with them continuously, and their ship is just constantly rotating trying to catch me. Don't do this if you have bad rotation. Don't do this if the ship you're fighting has better rotation, aka an M50, which has phenomenal rotation. Don't constantly merge with them. If you want to avoid that merge and you see that ship pushing towards you, this is where reverse strafe comes in handy. Keep strafing sideways, keep your motion, but start backpedaling away from them. That's going to slow their merge towards you, so that they are not able to close that gap very easily. They're going to be flying through your fire. They're going to be looking at the tiny... So if you're in an Aurora, they're going to be looking at the tiny front of your ship the whole time, and you're just going to back away from them. Back away, strafe sideways, back away, back away, back away. Keep them from merging with you. If you're in a massive gunship like a Hornet, you're having a little trouble with that M50, start thinking about backing away. Don't let that M50 close with you.
Because the closer an M50 is, the better for the M50.
Yep. Just back away, keep them in that massive cone of fire, and spray. Before Hornet Commander, before the Hornets started dominating the Arena Commander, and they weren't as tough as they are now, as ridiculously high health as they are right now, this is what good Hornet pilots would do. They would strafe sideways and back away from their opponent so that you were constantly in the monstrous cone of fire of that ship. So if you guys ever watch like Malagos's videos, you'll see him do this constantly. He'll actually back up constantly from an opponent and strafe sideways and back up and keep you in that cone of fire constantly. So that's what you want to do, especially if you're in that Aurora. Don't let them merge if you're in Aurora, because they will start chewing you up. And the Aurora, again, very small from the front. It's pretty small from the side. All the flow is pretty big from the top and bottom, and you don't necessarily want to get hit. It's also pretty long, which makes it easy for someone to line up their pips on you. And this is actually a pretty good example to use with an Aurora. And that's if you're using something like lag pips, and generally with lead pips too, the direction of the ship's travel is the same direction you want to try and put the tail of the pip in. So you want something like this. You don't want, if Miss Hearts was moving, you don't want something like this, because it's going to be real easy for Miss Hearts to steer out of the direction of the pip. And if you have weapons with different speeds, it's going to be real easy to line up this way. So I can put one pip on the nose, and one pip will now be on the tail, because that's the Miss Heart's direction of travel. If it's moving in a different direction, then one pip would be off the ship completely. So that's kind of a nice trick to do as well. Alright, I'm going to take a break from speaking for a second. Anybody else want to... Any comments, Strafe, Miss Hearts?
Not at the moment.
Stargazer, thank you for the host. Much appreciated. Welcome everybody from Stargazer stream. We're doing a little dogfighting 101 today.
One thing, I've really struggled with aiming throughout my entire experience with this game, and so I've developed a lot of little tricks that help me out. One of those things is trying to watch your opponent's ship as much, if not more, than you're watching your pip. This is pretty easy to do with lags, because with lag pips you're trying to line up that pip directly on the enemy ship, so it's pretty easy to watch the ship itself. But with leads, you tend to focus on that lead pip and you kind of ignore the ship. But you want to pay attention to which way that ship is facing, which way he's going, and then if he makes a big rotation, like if Bayor's flying like this and he all of a sudden rotates and goes a different direction, like I saw him rotate before he actually started moving in that direction. So if you keep your eye on the ship and can tell which way it's facing, he's probably going to take off straight. So you can already bring your pip and start aiming ahead of the ship. You don't just want to chase the pip or chase the lead. You want to try to run into the whatever I just ran into.
Boundary.
But basically, you want to kind of predict where that lead or where that lag pip is about to go. That'll really help you out.
And that's really, that brings up one of the keys of dogfight in this game, and that's prediction. What you're ultimately trying to do, and this is the case for this patch, it's been the case for every single patch in this game, what you're ultimately trying to do is make your ship's motion unpredictable and make their ship's motion predictable. That's ultimately what you're trying to do, because the more unpredictable your ship's motion is, the harder it is for them to aim. The harder it is to get their nose on target, to get their guns on target, to get their pips on target, because your pip is going all over the place. And they're just running around trying to chase it. And if you can make their pip stationary or force them into a situation where your pip is lined up on their ship, their motion is really predictable, you can easily aim at them, you're going to be able to win that fight, as opposed to making your motion unpredictable. You might get hit sometimes, but it's going to be really hard for them to land hit. It's going to feel more random than predicted.
For those of you that are used to flying traditional flight sims, especially World War II sims, so you're used to dogfighting and all you have basically is your crosshair at the front of your cockpit and looking at the enemy ship to try to lead the target yourself. If you do that with a combination of using the lead or lag pips, you'll probably be one of the most accurate people in the game, in my opinion, because that's what I do, and it really helps.
Rear shield under fire. Shields recharging.
All right, that's a pretty good basics combat stance start. So to sort of review all of that, use your cross section against their cross section, pit cross sections, so that your aim is easier than their aim. Predict the motion of their ship pretty well. Do not push into a target if you don't necessarily want to. Don't keep your motion going, so keep the space dust moving, as I like to say. Keep that motion moving. Don't cancel out your inertia, or otherwise your ship will come to a stop and you'll be very easy to hit. If your ship has slow rotation, don't let an enemy with faster rotation merge with you. So those are some of the really basics of engaging into a combat situation. This is the importance of having the strafe buttons, because that's going to give you all of the power to change the direction of your ship, to keep the direction going if you can, and to constantly sort of move about.
Shields recharging.
Yes, and I do actually have an option to bind a key. There are some situations when I do like to use leads. Often when I'm head-on with a ship and I just can't get a good angle, and all I want to do is land a shot. It's easier to land shots with leads than it is with lags. Generally speaking. However, I'm getting more used to and better at using lags right now. I
just can't get into lead.
I think the way I like to put it is leads are really nice if you're having a lot of trouble aiming and you really just want to get some shots on target. And lags are really nice if you really want a challenge and you want to be able to aim at components of the ship and you want more information out of your aiming system. Leads are good for new pilots. Lags are what you want to go with if you're really serious and you want to go to veteran status. You want to get more out of it. It's basically like hard mode aiming, but your peak is going to be higher than if you use leads. I don't know if that makes sense.
One thing I want to point out to anyone who tries to use lags in the current patch, my experience has been there's a little bit of a desync.
Yeah, I aim more forward to the ship.
Bayor, go ahead and shoot at me and put your lag pip right on me. I'll try to just circle straight normally. So, assuming that his lag pip is directly on my ship, he's probably missing it, right?
Actually, I'm pretty good at hitting you. Sometimes it's on the ship, but that could be because our peens are very close, actually.
Okay.
Because often that desync is related to the peen of the target.
Oh yeah, look at that. Okay. So depending on your ping, depending on latency, you might actually have to aim in front of the ship a little bit.
Yeah, if you got a target, if you got a target with a pretty high peen and you have to aim in front of their motion. Basically, is what you want to do. Not necessarily the front of their ship, but the front of their motion.
Right.
So if he's like moving this direction, I'd want to aim right about there. I would probably hit if he had 100 and 150 ping. Right about there would hit if he had 100 to 150 ping. So you want to aim at the direction. Oftentimes when you're a circle strafe, the direction is actually diagonal, so it's a little tricky. This is also one of the reasons if you're a low ping person playing in a high ping time zone, like for instance if you're a US guy playing in the morning with a lot of the European guys, you'll notice that your aim is a little difficult. Because you have to actually predict that motion and aim off the ship a little bit. And that's only if they're going faster. So the slower they're going, if you can force them to burn up their inertia, you'll still get easier shots. So dogfighting rules still apply. But the aim point is going to be a little bit different. Catch up on chat. A checklist of things to set up at the beginning of every single match. I mean, you should be generally good to go. Just make sure you have all of the controls you need. And that your ship, check your ship. Always, I guess before a match, I usually go into the hangar, I check my loadout to make sure that's working okay. It's what I want it to be. I go through the holotable, and I often check ammo to make sure the guns have ammo. If I'm using ballistics. And then when I get in, turning off look-ahead mode if you're using a mouse, locking the gimbals if you're using a mouse, making sure you have all your modes set right. And otherwise, it's just having your controls set. But once you set your controls to the way you want them once, you're generally pretty good to go. Whatever I set a loadout, it doesn't work in the match.
Proximity alert.
I don't know why that would be, Flare. It should work. Oops, found a rock. That's what I get for reading chat. I agree, Red Metis. If you have I have a really low ping. If you always have a really low ping, there's going to be some matches where you're just pips on target are never going to hit. Lag pip stays set, so whatever you last set it at, lag or lead, that it'll stay that way. It'll stay that way for the rest of the time. So that's not something you need to set at the start of every match.
Systems green. Contact. Begin scan.
All right, anybody who's not in here want to join us? We're going to talk about the next topic I'm going to talk about is reading combat situations and engaging, disengaging. I don't know if you answered this, but can you explain the whole thing with rolling to get behind your target better? Yeah, sure, I can go over that. That's basically a cross-section pitting. So what I'm doing when I'm rolling is I'm trying to establish, there's other reasons to roll, and we'll get to those. I'm trying to establish a 90-degree angle, which looks sort of like this, with my opponent's ship. And then once I've established this 90-degree angle, I'm strafing left or right to get to the top of the ship. That's going to give me the biggest target. And I'm trying to keep myself small by doing this because I'm forcing them to shoot at a very small target. This sets up an advantageous angle, an advantageous cross-section angle. You have a better aim situation than they do. So that's what you see me doing a lot of these rolls for. There's other reasons to roll, and we'll definitely get to that. Yeah, some normal weapons, Blunt is right, are a little bit buggy. If they're ballistic weapons, they can be really buggy. So if you're pulling weapons off another ship and trying to put them on your ship, that can be a little bit buggy. Try rented weapons; those tend to work a little bit better. There's some weapons that I think you just can't pull off a ship and put on another ship. Often it's ballistic weapons that you just can't do that with. Is there anything else I missed while I take a break?
I don't think so. One thing I'll say, if any of you are joystick users, I fly with a joystick. So if any of you have joystick-specific questions, I can try to answer them for you.
That is not where Miss Hearts is. That was creepy.
Was her box, her target box,
Yeah.
not by her ship?
It was not
That
by her
just
ship.
That just happened to you too.
That was weird.
Weird.
Scared. Could leave this server.
So let's talk a little bit about combat scenarios, reading combat situations, extending or disengaging and engaging into different situations. These are really important skills. These often do pit your advantage of your ship versus the disadvantage of the other ship. But it's also just really nice to know what you're getting into. A lot of people don't realize, hey, I'm doing everything right. I feel like I'm aiming right, I'm doing all these cross-section things, I'm hitting targets, but I keep dying. And often it's just because you're getting into fights that you can't win. And what I mean by that is, so let's, this will be sort of tough to see, but let's imagine that, that Scourge here, that average Joe, is my ally. And he is a certain distance away, and I'm coming in from a safe zone. I'm coming in from, like, way out here somewhere. And I look over and I can highlight Scourge, and I can see his ship is red all over, and he's got 4 enemies on him. As much as it pains me to say it, I should not enter that fight. Scourge is in a bad spot, he's about to die, and I show up and all I do is take his place with a 4v1. And this situation happens a ton in Squadron Battle, where basically you've got allies single file walking into a kill zone, basically a kill pocket. And they're just walking into it and dying one after another as those enemies completely focus fire them down. Do not do that. If you see that Scourge's in a bad spot, he's probably going to lose that fight. You can't help Scourge in this situation. Go find where the rest of your allies are, wait for the rest of your team to get to a respawn situation, and enter that fight in a more even ground. I really can't overemphasize how important it is to read a situation like that. If it looks like it's bad, get out of it. If there's a lot of enemy ships and you're by yourself, use your ship's speed, use whatever your ship has, and try to gain distance, get out of there, use afterburner, use rocks, try to get out of that disadvantageous situation until your allies can show up and help you out. So that's definitely part of reading that situation, seeing what's going on and being able to pick that up. If you're in a spot that is bad, let's say I've got all 3 of these guys. I've got Scourge, I've got Drafe, I've got Miss Hearts. My ship's beat up. They're all focus firing on me. If you're in that spot, don't just give up. Don't hit self-destruct. Don't eject. Don't just give up. Make that situation, a 3v1 situation, go on as long as you possibly can. Don't try to shoot back necessarily. Just fly, duck behind rocks, turn yourself into this massive, awful, hard target to hit. Fly around, move this way, move that way. try to survive as long as you possibly can in that situation. If you're in the persistent universe, let's say you got ganked by a bunch of pirates, and they're all focusing fire on you, and you're trying to evade. Hopefully you send out a distress beacon. You're buying time for the authorities to get there. You're buying time for help. If you're in squadron battle, and this is the situation that you're in, then you're in a 3v1. Your allies are now in an advantageous position. They now outnumber the rest of that team. While they're focusing fire on you, trying desperately to kill you, your allies now have an advantage. Push that advantage as long as possible. There's lots of reasons to be able to do this. Don't eject, don't just punch out, stay alive as long as you can. Eject at the end of it if you're sure you're gonna die. Make your life last as long as possible. And make yourself as hard a target as possible.
Contact.
Which means, and this kind of gives me a good little segue here, and this is a nice thing to kind of practice a little bit, which means you need to know how to make yourself a hard target. And that's actually kind of a skill in this game. It's not necessarily an offensive skill, it's just a pure defensive skill, flying completely defensively. It's gotten a little harder with the changes in the flight model, but you can still definitely do it. And
See you, Red Menace.
Oh, take care, Red Menace. I need
See
to
ya.
chat more. You guys have been talking a lot about Elite Dangerous, though, which is a game I never played. But I've seen it played. And this is really hard to know, and this is the advantage of flying with somebody who streams, because you can actually see this. So, for instance, Drafe, full defensive flying right now. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to make himself hard to hit. So what he wants to do, and this is something that's really hard to be able to figure out, but it's really easy because he can actually look at my stream and he can see how my pip is moving. And see how hard he is to hit.
Proximity alert. Starboard.
And it's really tricky right now. And it's something I need to practice. This is something actually I need to work on at this point, because I haven't done this in a while. I used to actually sit on Bad News Baron's stream, fight against him, and then go back and review past footage so I could see how my evasive maneuvers were working.
Proximity alert. Head.
One thing that I'm doing, and maybe you should do this next, is what I know he's behind me and I have him targeted. So when you have somebody targeted but they're not in front of you, you have that, in this case, a green arrow pointing to where their ship is. I'm trying to make all my turns, any of my big direction changes, where that arrow is either in the left or right on my screen, because that's where my smallest cross section is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want. I want to turn. I want to turn like this. If I turn like this,
Yep. Big
I already
target.
know. I already know. But if I turn like this,
Small target.
much smaller target. That's what I'm always trying to do. If I am getting shot at and I see that the arrow of my target, or even fire, is coming from the top, I immediately roll so that my smallest cross section is facing them.
And this is the understanding where to turn so that you're not showing bad cross section is also really nice, especially for those ships that have the new radar, which I think is supposed to be the default radar on most of the ships in the future. So if Drafe holds still there, if I spin around, let's see if I can do this right. It doesn't actually show when he's directly behind me, and so it can be kind of difficult to know exactly where to turn. But I can actually look at the radar and I can kind of see his position, and I know that I don't want to turn perpendicular to that, or I don't want to turn towards it with my top or bottom. So you can kind of push that. So like here, I don't want to turn now. I put it at the top of the radar. That's bad. You want to keep it in the side of the radar, and it's nice to get used to looking at the radar, because the radar actually shows more information than the arrows do. For instance, if I have Scarge here, I've got him pinned as an ally. I can see him on my radar. I know exactly where Scarge is. He's 1. So I can turn towards a target. So get used to looking at the radar rather than the arrows, basically the gist of that. If I keep him in the lateral direction, that's going to keep my cross-section low. If I put him in this direction, that's going to make my cross-section big if I turn towards him. But also, I can now check the radar and look at that, and I can see where my ally is too. So don't necessarily use the arrow, is the gist of that, to make those cross-section turns.
Proximity
Absolutely.
alert. Head.
But I understand that the radar ball isn't necessarily as good at this. Your radar is blocked by 1/3 of your overlay. Oh. Well. Not much I can do about that, but you get the idea.
St. Morpheus has a question.
Waha! Is there a benefit to not go full throttle? I always try in dogfight about 50% throttle, but I don't know if it's really helping me maneuver on the X and Y axis. Do you mean by the X and Y axis like your lateral strafing directions? So your ship in SCM mode has a top speed. That top speed is basically the relative direction. So if you're at 50% throttle and you strafe to the left, you can only strafe so much, and actually you're never strafing to the left fully. You're actually kind of strafing diagonally because you're always producing forward motion. So don't have a throttle setting. Never have a throttle setting. Don't set it at one particular thing and stick to it. First of all, that's basically like putting part of the ship on autopilot. It takes away some of the unpredictability of your ship because you're always doing one thing. Instead, you definitely want to micromanage your throttle. Speed it up, slow it down constantly. If you get close to a ship, find your ideal angle, slow it down so that you're not shooting past them. So don't set a throttle at 50%. Don't set it at 100%. Don't even set it at 20%, although I don't think that would be as disadvantageous. It makes you a little bit too predictable. It also lowers the amount of speed you can move in one direction or another. So for instance, if I want to move as fast as I possibly can laterally, I have to have my throttle set at 0 to do that. If I have my throttle set at a certain point, I'm not moving laterally, first of all. I'm moving diagonally at that particular speed, but that's going to make it so that my motion is a bit more predictable to them, and I have a little bit less control of my ship that way. And I'm always pushing forward, and I don't always want to be pushing forward. There are situations where you don't want to do that. A great example is if you happen to be flying an Aurora, you don't want to always be pushing forward. In fact, most of the time you want to be going backwards, because you don't want to merge with that target and push them into your slow-ass rotation where they have an advantage. So if you want more speed, more lateral strafe, more direct lateral strafe, and not diagonal strafe, you got to cut that throttle back to 0. Hey, Lord Wellman, how's it going? So let's talk a little bit more about some of those combat situations that you're going to encounter a lot of times, and more about that flying in sort of evasive pattern. If you get into a situation where you aren't going to win, a good example for reading a combat situation, let's say I'm shooting at Drafe, and Miss Hearts is my ally, and Miss Hearts is in the area, and I can kind of know that. Let's say I have Miss Hearts pinned, and I'm shooting at Drafe, and I can see Miss Hearts is pretty close by. And Miss Hearts is, also shooting at Drafe. I can see the laser fire coming in. I can see that happening. I'm losing this fight. My shields are down, but Miss Hearts is putting fire on Drafe too. I don't necessarily want to focus on offense at that point. What I want to do is the same thing I mentioned before. I actually want to try and stay alive for a bit. I want to actually move and dodge and start, even with me facing the ship, I want to start flying evasively while facing the ship. It's not helping my aim, but it's hurting theirs. And I want to really start to begin to push it. Maybe I do want to do a quick merge, then extend really hard. Afterburn away, I just suddenly gained 1,500, 1,600. Now I'm really far away from that ship. Those are all great maneuvers to try and get distance, to try and buy time. The whole time this person is shooting at me, I'm making myself a hard target. Miss Hearts is firing back and shooting at that person. That's going to get you that win.
Especially when he extends. Because if I see how critical he is, I might just be like, I don't care if Miss Hearts is shooting at me, I want this kill so bad, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. As soon as he merges, flies off, I'm gonna take off in the same direction. Oh, I got you, buddy. Now I'm moving way more predictably, and Miss Hearts is probably lighting me up. Or anybody that's on me is probably lighting me up in that situation.
And that's actually brings up a really good point, and that's that extension merge. Basically, you're not intending to shoot at the target. You have an ally shooting at this person, you're in trouble, you need to gain distance. What you're going to do is you're going to look for an angle where their guns aren't pointing at you, and you're going to hit Afterburner and fly past. As close as possible to that ship that is safe, where you're gonna reduce the amount of incoming fire. What that does is when I make that merge and I shoot past him at a straight speed, what he does is he sees me pass and he goes, oh crap, I need to turn and chase because I really want to get this guy. Hey, I've almost got him. I got tunnel vision. I really want to get him. He's going to do exactly what we talked about earlier, a 180-degree turn into his own inertia. He's going to try and go straight. He's going to slow down for a second. He's suddenly going to be flying in a really predictable fashion. And Miss Hearts has a super easy shot. But I am not an easy shot. I just extended past him, made him slow down and turn. And in that motion, fired Afterburner. We'll get that distance. I am way outside of an easy shot distance now. By the time he comes around and he's able to get on, I'm usually at about 1800, 1900, depending on the ship. I've gained a ton of distance now, and I could use rocks, I could loop around. They probably still have tunnel vision. They're probably still chasing me. They're not going to recognize, oh crap, I have someone else shooting me, and this guy's just disengaged. I need to go focus on that person. I never use match speed. I'm heavily against match speed. I don't know any pilots who are really good at the dogfighting who use match speed. Don't use it. There's situations you might be able to pull it off, but honestly, that situation is always better if you use just throttle control rather than match speed. I hate autopilot systems in general. Don't let your ship automatically do it. Which brings me to another point in engagement situations. Those are all engagement situations. Well, the first one was an engagement situation you don't want to enter into. The second one was you're in a bad spot, but you have help coming, or you have help working, and you're just trying to be evasive. The next engagement situation that you run into often is if you're flying towards a target that's engaged with somebody else. So you're basically in an off-target position. You guys hear me use that sometimes. Off-target position on two targets that are fighting each other. This is where throttle control is huge. This is actually kind of a tricky position when you got two targets that are facing each other. So, Drafe and Miss Hearts just, do a little circle strafing. Have a little fun. So, if Drafe is my target, let me show you what happens if I'm pushing forward all the time. Oh, I passed him. Go back. Overshot him by a lot. Okay, trying to get a good target. Oh, passed him. You're basically jousting with a target who isn't jousting you. That's pointless. Do not do that. You want to have really good throttle control in this situation. But forward throttle right now is really sensitive. So you've got to be very careful with it. Position yourself nicely. You want tops and bottoms of the ship. Just tap throttle. Strafe to get around. Strafe to get that top. Try to stay on target. Do not pass, because that's just time wasted. Every time you pass somebody, you have to rotate around. You're wasting time. And your ally is losing time when you do that. So now I've got a really good position. I'm going to keep firing, keep shooting. Try and hold that. Get a little closer. There, I got some time off target there. That was a little bit of a mistake. If I was a little faster, I could have probably reversed strafe to keep him in front of me. Try to watch the motion of that ship like Drafe talked about earlier. Keep an eye on that motion of that ship so that you can try and predict it and avoid those merges. Strafe towards the top of his ship to keep that top section in view. Same
and if
thing.
you're in this position that I'm in right now, where you're in a duel with someone, realize that you're taking fire from a third party and they're not constantly overshooting you and they're actually getting hits on you, that's the same thing. Even better, if I can line up both of them where they're in my view at the same time, let's say I back up, I see both of them, you can do that merge again, just like we talked about before, and because you don't want to be in a 2 versus 1 situation. So now is my turn to try to disengage and find allies, get one of them to peel off me, something like that. If you notice you're in a 2v1 or any time you're outnumbered like that, you want to try to disengage and reset that fight.
Now, let's say you're in this situation that Drafe is in, and you want to stay in it. For whatever reason, you want to stay in this situation. And there could be reasons you might want to stay in. You're really close to the kill. You're really close to getting this dangerous target out. And then you can focus on this other target. But you want to minimize the amount of damage you're taking. This is where starting to begin to actively roll becomes really important. Because then I can't get a top section. So if Drafe's in this situation, he starts rolling a bit more. I can sometimes get a section, but then that immediately changes. It's like, okay, there's a top section there. Look at that. Oh, it just changed. And now it's really hard for me to strafe and get good, clean shots on him. That's going to buy you a little bit of time. But generally, you don't want to be in a 2v1. So if you just need a couple extra seconds, start rolling to make your cross-section a little bit smaller.
The thing that clues me in whether or not, Bear's probably the same way, whether or not you can stay in a 2v1, because generally you don't. But if you realize you're dealing way more damage than you're taking, then you might be able to stick around just to get that kill.
Yeah. And that's the importance of reading a situation. How much incoming fire are you actually taking from this target? It could be that they're just not very good at aiming, in which case you just look at your shields, you go, I'm not really taking that much damage, but I'm dishing out a huge ton of damage. This often happens to me. Let's say, for instance, I'm in a ship and I'm shooting at a Hornet and I'm just racking up numbers. And then along comes, I don't know, a Merlin or a Mustang Alpha, and they're pecking at me. They're just pecking at my shields. There's no reason for me to disengage on that. I can stick around for a while and really chew on that Hornet, and then I can deal with that Mustang after I finish off that Hornet. That is a really, really weird question. Odiostes, I don't know where you're going with that. I don't ever give in to peer pressure anyway, so sorry.
I could tell you some, but I think I'd. But
Bayor peer pressured me into playing Star
the
Citizen.
NDA for the stream.
There you go. Drave peer pressured me into playing Star Citizen.
Bayor pressured me. Into...
If we have a peer pressure train right here. All right, so another combat scenario, and this is something I hope changes. I don't expect it to change anytime soon. But sometimes you have no freaking clue who's shooting at you. You have no idea what the heck is going on. You're in a massive furball. You got a target you're shooting at, and your shields are getting hit. Looks like part of your hull might have taken a little bit of damage. You're pretty sure someone's shooting at you, but there's this monstrous crowd around you. There is no button for target who's shooting at me. There is no indication on your radar who's shooting at you, and sometimes it's a little difficult to even see the shots hitting your hull. You hear the noise. That can be a little bit difficult, so sometimes it's just nice to be able to go, who the hell is shooting at me? One of the best ways to do this, if you're engaged in a target zone, I'm shooting at this person, and let's say I'm shooting at Miss Hearts. This is my target, and Drafe is engaged with me, and I don't know it. So Drafe,
right.
pretend you're engaged with me.
Okay.
I have no idea that Drafe is engaged with me, but I start getting a clue. I see some shots fly across my hull. I want to see who's shooting at me. I'm going to turn away, and I'm going to boost backwards. There. Let me show you that again, what exactly I did there. So I was engaged with Miss Hearts. I was shooting Miss Hearts. And I'll go a little slower this time. I start hearing shots coming in at me. I want to see who's shooting at me. I back up, reverse strafe. I hit boost to do it faster. And then I'm going to start cycling targets and look for who's looking at me. And I see, oh crap, Drafe is the person who's looking at me right now. Now I know exactly. Boundary? I know exactly who's shooting at me. Okay, I can switch to shooting at this target. This is especially nice if you're engaged on somebody who's not shooting back, because you want to always, this is a really important rule, you want to shoot at who's shooting at you most of the time. Because if you're not facing a target, you're more vulnerable than if you are. Mir Test is hosting me. Thank you very much, Mir. I much appreciate it. Do you have...
Also, it...
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to say, as far as that goes, were you just saying? I just had the biggest brain fart of my entire life.
It's gone.
What? I don't understand. What did you just say about the thing?
I don't remember.
Well, there's a couple
Sweet.
questions in the
All right,
chat.
continue.
Vimes was asking if she should work on getting on someone's 6.
Definitely not. Somebody asked that? Yeah, definitely.
Vimes did.
Don't worry about getting on someone's 6. Actually, getting on someone's 6, the only advantage of being on someone's 6 is that you know for sure they're not shooting at you. But that's actually a pretty small target. There's reasons that you might be able to do that, and it's actually kind of important in Wingman tactics. That's kind of a Dogfighting 202 or 201 kind of class. Doing some of the Wingman tactics, which we might be able to get to some of that today. But most of the time, what you want is top and bottom. That's the biggest target, and it's the most forgiving section. So if you got, like me, I consider my aim okay. There's a lot of people in this game who have better aim than me. So I always try to make those targets really big so that my okay aim is kind of canceled out. I don't have to worry about it so much. I'll probably hit. You want tops and bottoms of most of the ships. There are some ships, now when we get like ships like the Xi'an Scout or the Misk Reliant in there, some of the rules are going to change. Those ships have got weird cross sections. But until then, top and bottom, every single ship is going to be good.
Also, Warnost asked if you'd recommend doing flight tutorials before dogfighting tutorials.
I would not recommend doing the tutorial right now, but that's primarily because it's slightly dated and also slightly buggy. I would not recommend that. I would recommend running around in free flight to get familiar ship, setting up your controls, and then if you want some okay tutorial videos, the Legacy Instructional series does have some pretty good ones. You can find those if you just Google them, the Legacy Instructional series. Those are done by Team Legacy and Vin Whitesnake over at Team Legacy. And those are actually pretty good for settings and general combat formations, that kind of stuff. Those are actually pretty good video series. Yeah, like McKetton said, it's actually kind of broken for new players right now. Don't worry about the tutorial. That's not their fault. The tutorial is really difficult to continuously update as we change the game. It's a tutorial in an alpha is a little strange in itself. But this is a strange alpha, so I understand why they did it. Now, let's say you're in another way to do that situation where you're trying to figure out who's shooting at you. And you might be in more trouble. You might have a lot of people shooting at you. You might not necessarily always want to back up. So if I'm engaged with Miss Hearts again, and Drafe is shooting at me and I don't know it, you can do the reverse strafe. Let's say you don't want to reverse strafe and you want to actually move forward to see who's shooting at you. It's the same tactic, but now you're going to use an additional key. So it's rather than moving forward, rather than move backwards, I move forward. I'm going to use look behind. And now I'm going to start cycling through those targets to find who's looking at me, and I can see now it's Drafe. That's another way to do it, is to use look behind. And that's nice because it's an additional viewpoint. If you decide to backpedal, it's a little risky sometimes. Like, say I'm here, and I decide I want to back up. I might not necessarily be able to check what's behind me quick enough. And it's nice to have that look behind for that reason too. But it can be nice to go forward and then look behind you. It's a little faster to clear obstacles that way, not as fast to be able to check who's shooting at you that way, generally speaking. So that's one of those engagement scenarios. You're trying to figure out who's shooting at you. And you might want to figure out how many people are shooting at you. And if you want to know that, that's the same thing. Just extend away, look behind you, start cycling through targets and see who's looking at me. So if I were in a combat situation, I could easily see that Drafe and Miss Hearts are both targeted here because they're both following me. In that situation, I just might want to be like, you know what, screw them. I'm just going to fly off. I don't want to be in a 2v1. Or I might be like, where's my allies? You know, looking around, where's my allies? Let's say these rocks over here are allies. Okay, this is where I'm going. I'm going to pull them right into the allies.
Proximity alert. Head.
And these kinds of tactics like this, situational reading tactics, these are super nice because they're completely independent of your aim. They're completely independent of your dogfighting skill, necessarily. These are things that anybody can do. Take opponents, drag them into allies. try to be in good situations rather than bad situations. Especially if you're in a ship that's faster, you can read a situation and be in any kind of fight you want to be in, and you don't have to be in a fight you don't want to be in. And that can be really nice for just giving yourself time and understanding what's happening.
Shield under fire. Shields recharging.
Look behind
Hey,
you
one
is a
thing you-
bit realistic, in my opinion. Well, technically, they say it's a camera. That's why it does that little beep noise. It's actually a camera situated on the back of the ship. Which-
You know it's a camera because it beeps.
Every car today has a backup camera.
Yeah, cars today have a backup camera. It's not entirely unrealistic.
I use that all the time to figure out who's behind me when I'm driving. Or if I'm gonna run into asteroids or not. Happens every day. Hey, one thing you actually might want to mention is clearing G's.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, yes. Clearing G's is super nice. So, if you're in a hard maneuvering situation, the best way I could do this is I can do a strafe roll. Strafe roll is going to build up G's really fast. So let me just build up a ton of G-force. Actually, I can just do it. I'm going to strafe up. Hopefully the ship's fast enough still. Strafe down. Oh, starting to push that black out here. There we go. Almost got it. What most people do is they let go of throttle and they try to slow down. They try to avoid that blackout. That's how most people do it. Let me show you a secret to doing this a little faster. You're in space, so your direction does not matter. You can roll anytime you want. So once I start to black out here, I'm going to roll and keep my motion. G's instantly clear. Not instantly, but pretty quick, and I never had to slow down. So let me show you, I'll walk you through exactly what I'm doing here to produce the G-force effect. First, I'm going to strafe up. Takesis, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. I'm going to boost strafe down. This is going to force me into a blackout situation, but I want to keep my motion down. I don't want to let go of throttle. I'm going to roll right. Now strafe right. I never lost my motion and my G's cleared. That's because the direction of blood flow has changed. I've changed the way my G's are loading onto my pilot. So you black out and red out because blood is either being pushed into your head by negative G's or being pushed into your feet by positive G's. So you're losing blood or you get, I guess, too much blood. That's blackout and red out in this game. Necron, thank you for the follow. That's why you do that. You can change the direction that the blood is flowing by rolling in space, by rolling in instantaneously. So if you start to black out, roll, 45 degrees, and you've changed the direction of blood flow to be in a lateral direction. And for some ships like the M50, you kind of have to constantly do this because you're constantly riding the edge, especially in past patches. Not so much in this one because they've made the ship so drifty now. But in past patches, you had to constantly roll to keep your G's clear, to keep your vision clear. So that's a really nice technique. And I'll show it the same thing with a red out. I'm going to strafe straight down, boost strafe up. This should push me into... Ooh, that's weird. I didn't do that right. Bad strafe. All right, boost strafe up. There we go. Then I'm going to roll and clear. That's what a rolling to clear your G's is like. So the gist of that is if you start to black out or red out, don't let go of your controls. Don't slow down to control that. Just roll and maintain your motion, because if you slow down, you become an easier target. Also, don't just keep blacking out, because if you black out, you're an easy target too. Although, I don't know if I can do this in this ship. It's an interesting note. You can white out. You have to be going pretty fast. White out is lateral G's. You used to call it goat fainting because your guy would just fainted. What if you roll 90 degrees instead of 45? That'll work too. That'll work as well. It's a longer roll though.
As long as you don't roll over 180, you'll because when I first started doing it, when Hero was like, "Hey, did you know if you roll, it'll clear your G's?" I was like, "Okay," and I just started like rolling like this. It didn't really do anything. I realized it's a limit. You're basically just rolling until it clears. or rather to a max of 180. At least that's what I do.
Yeah, if you roll too much, basically if you roll in the same axis of direction, you could end up rolling back into blackout on accident.
Right.
But that's the only way. Generally, if you just change the direction of blood flow outside of that axis, you're okay. So there's a lot of different rolls that you can do. 45 degrees is just the fastest way to clear it. I was going to say something. Let's see. So if you black out or red out, I'll show you this. Because I don't know if I can actually white out in this ship, but I can black out. Hopefully.
Proximity alert. Deck.
Oops. Okay, I can't black out this one.
Weapons.
Or I'll just crash into a rock trying to.
That's one way to white out.
See? White out. There we go. Basically what I'm trying to show here is if you white out, don't necessarily panic like you do with a blackout. The blackout, you're basically dead. If you have a target who's shooting at you really well. Or is pretty good at aim. The Avenger's actually rather hard to black out in, surprisingly. There we go. Got a blackout. So, first of all, if you haven't blacked out before, and those of you Aurora pilots, you might not have, to be honest. That could happen. You drift for a while when you black out. You'll continually drift. Your ship will slowly begin to lose speed, I believe. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in a blackout, your ship will slowly begin to lose speed.
Systems green.
Actually, you always wanted to test this. Because there's situations where when you black out, you stop completely, and there seems to be situations where you continuously move. And I think it's if you're on the controls at the time. So if I try to let go here.
To be going at the same speed.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think I was still on the controls. I think the way it works is if you're off the controls and you're trying to slow down but you black out, you will actually slow down to a complete stop. If you're still on the controls, you'll continuously drift in a linear motion. I think is how it works. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's how it works. So if you're in a really fast ship and you're going full speed when you black out, there's actually a pretty good chance you could survive that. Because you're still going full speed. If there's no asteroids and you nothing you're going to run into, because you're still going full speed and every other ship is slower than you. For instance, if you're in a 350R and you black out, you're still going full steam. So you're actually okay. If you're in a pretty slow ship and you black out, which is generally harder to do, it's actually a lot worse because somebody just sees a straight linear path and you're really easy to pull.
Begin scan.
Alright. Let me think if there's other combat situation type stuff.
In the meantime, everyone attack Bear.
Yep.
You said you wanted to practice evading.
Yep. I will sucker punch all of you. Ornus, thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to the stream.
Invaforo has a question.
Could you show us this? Follow someone who is evading and have them announce when they black out so we can see examples and know
Hell
when
yeah.
to black out. Yeah, definitely. Who wants to black out?
Alright, here we go.
Alright, we'll follow Drafe here.
I was gonna say, I don't know if I can black out in a Hornet.
Oh man.
So you see your target, he's maneuvering.
Can't hit me at all. Let me actually black out here. Let me stop rolling.
Shields recharging. Shields recharging.
And pop. I'm out.
There it is. As soon as he blacked out, see his motion, and he hit a rock.
It's usually what happens.
Alert.
What you'll see is, it's almost like they decoupled. Basically, you're going to see them moving their ship, they're going to be bouncing around, and then suddenly, bink, their ship's just drifting. It's not moving, nothing's happening, it's just drifting. That's when you can tell a target has blacked out, and that is really important. That's a really good question to be able to read that, because as soon as you see that, you don't have to be evasive anymore. If no one's shooting at you, you see them black out, completely laser focus on aiming, because you're in a completely safe situation. Show him again, Drafe. Don't run into an asteroid, though.
Do my best. See if I can run into the. I'm out.
There he is. He's out. Look at his ship. Perfectly straight. easy to hit. I can just line up, I can zoom in, take my time, try and get as many hits as possible. And you'll see, they wake up. It's just like somebody waking up.
I'm awake.
There he is. Suddenly it moves. It is literally like the ship has passed out. Because it suddenly starts drifting, and then they wake up and like, oh god, I gotta get out of here.
If you're like me, you're angrily bashing at the keyboard.
Yes.
Wake up, damn it!
Cursing at your pilot.
He didn't do his hick maneuver. That was the problem.
Proximity alert. Head.
All right, what else should we talk about?
Proximity alert. Starboard.
That really is the vast majority of the basics. There's a lot of fundamental things that are just difficult to get that I cannot teach you, and a big part of that, unfortunately, is aim, and aim is a big part of the game right now.
Yes, sir.
Practice.
That's something that just takes a lot of practice. I've shown you ways to make it so that having less skilled aim or less polished aim can be a little bit less or a little bit more forgiving. I've shown you some ways for that, but aim is just something that you just have to work on. It's different for every single device, but aim is super crucial right now. You want to be on target. And it's nice to be able to read a situation. This is actually really important for a situational read, so this is something that's good to bring up. And then we'll actually jump into talking a little bit about wingmanning stuff. It's important to read when you can't win. Even if it's a one-on-one situation, it's nice to know I'm probably not going to win this situation, and I need to think about a different way to approach this target. So a way to tell if you can't win is if you're at a circle strafe with a good target, and you're both in each other's sights, and you're not landing hits. So you're like, your aim is like this, you're trying really hard to hit, and you're watching your shields are dropping, your hull is getting beat up, you are outmatched aim-wise. You're both producing good shots, you're doing everything you can, but you're just getting nailed. You're in a situation you can't win. This is a situation, again, it's like a 2v1 situation, it's time to get out of there. So if I'm in the situation here with Miss Hearts, and I'm trying to hit, doing everything I can, I'm not hitting, I'm looking, oh, my shields are down, oh, I'm getting my butt kicked here. It's time for me to get out. I'm going to extend away, I'm going to take off, I'm going to look for, well, there's Drafe.
A rock. Oh, Drafe.
Yep, that was a long con right there.
Found Drafe, though. You're going to look for an ally when that happens, and you're going to try and drag that superior aimed opponent into a disadvantageous situation. You can take...
Without running straight into your ally.
Without running straight into your ally, preferably. You can take an opponent who's better than you and put them in a worse situation to make them lose. That's an important thing to be able to recognize. So if I'm fighting Drafe, I'm like, oh, this sucks. Oh, this guy's so much better than me. Damn it.
Yes, this is correct.
And I'm like, this is not going to work. I'm going to extend past, take off at a distance here. I'm
Make
going
sure
to start.
to be evasive while you're doing it, though.
Yeah, make sure to be evasive. They got good aim, so you got to be careful. I'm going to look for somebody. Okay, I see Miss Hearts. I'm going to pin Miss Hearts on my radar here. Still trying to be evasive, and I'm going to start steering towards Miss Hearts. And I'm going to hope Miss Hearts is not busy and is aware of what's going on. You want to try and look for targets that aren't engaged. Maybe they just respawned. That's actually a really good thing to do if you're an arena commander, is look for someone who's respawned, because typically there's more allies that are going to respawn there. Drag that opponent to that position. If you're
into an asteroid.
Or into an asteroid, why not? If you're in the persistent universe, this is when you want to get the fuck out. This is when you want to turn on cruise. This is when you want to start thinking about quantum traveling away. You want to start thinking about how to distribute your shields to make that last longer. A lot of the mechanics aren't complete in the persistent universe, but this is when you want to start thinking about getting out of dodge. You're in a situation you can't win. Even if it's a 1v1 situation, don't be embarrassed to take the hell off.
Contact.
But generally, you want to think about either running away or putting your enemy into a disadvantageous situation where their superior dogfighting skills don't matter as much.
Proximity alert. Head.
Because I know lots and lots of really good dogfighters in this game who are really bad situation readers and who drag themselves into really bad spots and who are easy to put into bad spots. So that's actually part of dogfighting. So they have really good aim and they have really good maneuvers, but they have bad situational awareness.
Maverick has 2 questions that you should probably take a look at.
What is your
Second one? Yeah, go ahead.
What is your in-game, or what is your sensitivity in-game at Crisis Engine and your mouse sensitivity, DPI? What do you suggest for a game for flying, aiming, or best compromise? What I do is a little bit weird with my setup. I actually haven't used interactive mode in a while. I use VJoy. I'm not sure if that's what you're using or not, Maverick. In VJoy, I'll actually show you what my settings are. But this is going to be different for everybody. It depends on what kind of mouse you have, etc. My master sensitivity is at 12. My flight movement sensitivity is at 0.19 or 0.12, 0.19. Let me see if there's anything else I've messed with. And then my aim sensitivity, which I think this affects interactive mode, is actually really small. It's 0.07, which I don't use interactive mode very much. So I have more flight sensitivity and a little bit less VJoy sensitivity. Actually, no, flight sensitivity is VJoy. So I've got that dialed way up. Part of the reason I do that is because I tend to fly small ships that have slow rotation, and I'm trying to increase that rotation. So I have my sensitivity for VJoy, which is all flight sensitivity, kind of dialed up, actually. And then I have my interactive mode sensitivity dialed down. Because typically, I want better control of my ship. I want my ship to move when I move my mouse. But when I'm aiming, I don't really need evasive control of my guns. So I don't need to worry about that so much. I just need my guns to track well. So I have that sensitivity turned down. But again, I don't really use interactive mode much at this patch. I haven't used it much. Let me see if so even with the sensitivity turned down, this still feels too sensitive to me. I'd probably turn it down more. This is interactive mode. When do you switch in and out of cruise when dogfighting? The non-cruise mode is really slow. So cruise, this is something I can't demonstrate here, but cruise really puts your ship on rails when you're on it. You're not very evasive when you're on cruise. You're actually a pretty easy target. The only thing that makes you a hard target is you're going so damn fast. And you can typically disengage out of somebody's weapon range before they can respond to enter cruise themselves. So usually I enter cruise when if I'm in the persistent universe, when I'm up against somebody with energy weapons and my shields drop. I'm going to go into cruise to try and get my shields to come back up. I enter cruise to gain distance so that I can safely quantum travel. If I'm 100% sure I'm going to lose this particular fight, I'm going to enter cruise, then I'm going to start thinking about quantum traveling to safety from there. The thing you want to be careful of with cruise, and this is again back to that first lesson, know your ship and know what your opponent's ship can do, is sometimes your opponent's ship has a faster cruise speed than you. For instance, Scourge here, his cruise speed in the Aurora LN is like 475. And my cruise speed is like 1100 something. So he could cruise away from me, and I could hit cruise and catch him really, really fast. Now he's cruising, and he has a very low evasion ship, and I'm right behind him matching his cruise speed, shooting at him. So some ships cruise a little bit tricky. Vanguards can cruise at like 1500. So trying to cruise away from a Vanguard is going to be really, really tricky. They're going to be able to catch you pretty quick. I don't have a lot of experience with that info. I've done a little bit of experimenting with how to fly so that your turret gunner stays on target, but it's not something I've done a lot of experimenting with. I kind of wish I could do multi-crew and arena commander so that I could really get an idea of how to do that. What I've done so far, so if Scourge here is an opponent and I'm in a giant Connie, and let's say I've got gunner top bottom, I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to strafe in a direction like down so that that ship is always on the upper side of my ship. That's going to put that person in the sights of my top gunner until my top gunner goes, oh, my weapons are overheating. Okay, I'm going to now roll and I'm going to strafe down. so that my bottom gunner has it and start spraying that out. The nice thing about that is that'll also spread out your shields a little bit. Ooh, I haven't talked about shields.
Good morning, Bayar.
Good morning, Admiral. How are you doing today?
Yeah, pretty good. Didn't go to, I don't work today, so holy crap, I slept. That felt weird.
Nah, it's always nice.
I know how that feels.
So again, I'm strafing up. This is putting him in the lower turret position. This is all I've experimented with, really. Now strafing down, this put him in the top part of the position. So that's really all I've done with it. I'm kind of a noob when it comes to that. I'll work on that when I have a bit better ability to polish it.
Unfortunately, the game hasn't really developed too much of the turret mechanics yet either. So even when you are in a turret in the persistent universe, it feels really, really clunky, and it's not a very good gaming experience at the moment. And that's just because they haven't really set up too much of it yet. It's getting there, but it's not there yet.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. So before we get to some of the Wingman stuff, I want to talk a little bit about shields. This is a sort of secret, sort of hidden mechanic here. This is going to get more important because they've specifically said, I think in Reverse the Verse, that they're going to change shields, how they function, and it's going to become more important to be able to do good shield management, including reducing the damage more of ballistics for shields that have more power in them. Is a good example I think they mentioned. But generally speaking, shield management's importance is only going to increase from here. But it is actually a little bit important, especially if you have one of these quad face shields like I have in the Avenger. What I've done one time in dogfighting, I took a video of me playing several matches of Arena Commander. I actually think I went into a past broadcast and watched myself playing Arena Commander. And this is really dorky of me, but this is definitely something I am prone to doing. I actually sat there with a checkbox and I watched 2 or 3 matches twice, and I tallied which shields were going down. And then I went back and watched them all, and I tallied which shields were staying up, and I just watched all my shield action. It turns out, because I tend to strafe left, like this, and away from a target, that a target, even though they're in front of me and shooting at me, is typically hitting my left shield. And I can actually show that. Miss Hart, you have energy weapons on there, right?
Badgers.
Badgers, yeah. Okay, shoot at me.
Starboard shield under fire.
See that? Starboard shield. Even though they're right in front of me, I'm getting hit on that starboard side because I'm strafing left. What that means is that I can control what shield gets hit by the way I'm handling my ship, and I can set my shields to match my flying style. So typically in a match, I forget to do this, but I will set my shields to be more to the right because I know I like to strafe to the left. Now I've got a stronger shield on that right side. In the same sense, if my shield starts to go down, I can shift and now strafe to the right, and I can shift to which direction that shield is getting hit. This is important for fighters. This is super important for the bigger ships when those come online and start being used more for combat. To be able to shift your strafing directions, to be able to know what shield face is getting hit based on what maneuvers you're doing. So if I strafe up, I'll probably get that tail shield hit a little bit more, and etc. If all my shield faces are down and I've still got the tail shield, well, that's a good time to extend past and fly away from somebody because I've got that rear shield back there absorbing the damage. All of that is really important. Monitor your shield faces, and that also shows the advantage of having a quad face shield over a 2-face shield. So this is typically my shield formation at full shields. I've got more power to my right shields, I've got equal power to front and back, and I've got less power to my left shields because I'm always going to strafe away from a target to the left. So my left shield actually rarely gets hit. It's usually my last shield face to go down.
Proximity alert. Head.
What's the difference between interactive and VJoy modes? So what VJoy does for mouse pilots, first of all, VJoy is basically the same as a gimbal lock. So if you have gimbals and you hit gimbal lock, which is Control G, you enter VJoy. technically speaking, both interactive mode and VJoy use VJoy. Interactive mode, what interactive mode does is it has a dead zone in the middle. You can see I'm moving the cursor here. The ship is not moving. And it allows me to articulate and aim my guns separately from the axis of my ship. And if I look in external view here, you can actually see this gun articulated and moving about. VJoy locks my gimbal, so it takes that gun and locks it into a forward-facing position. It no longer articulates. The dead zone is now gone. You can see I'm moving in the same circle here, but now my nose is shifting up and down, left and right. That dead zone is now gone. Now all of my guns are aiming towards the center crosshair right here, and I'm steering my ship to get on target. So if I'm aiming at Miss Hearts, I'm trying to put this pip on there on the ship. If I use interactive mode, I'm moving the cursor to try and move that square onto the ship. That's the difference between those two. One of them requires a gimbal mount to use, so you can't do this with every single gun mount. It requires a gimbaled mount to be able to use it.
Proximity alert port.
The other you use fixed weapons for. Fixed weapons are a size up in most cases, not all. In most cases, fixed weapons can be a size bigger than gimbaled weapons because the gimbal mount is so small that you have to reduce the size of the weapon to make it fit. Well, the nice thing about doing it this way, instead of transferring shields to where it's low, is it's hard for me. I mean, you can use voice attack, but I find it a little bit micromanaging to try and transfer a shield in the middle of combat. Sometimes voice attack fails. I mean, you can use voice attack to be like front shields, left shields, you know, to constantly transfer a shield to where it's low. And that is something you can do. It does the exact same thing. I like to set my shields right before I go into combat and shift things about.
Proximity alert.
That's just me.
Proximity
Plus, you are limited by how much you can do that. So, for instance, I can transfer shield all the way to the right, but you can see I still have shield faces on the front and back and the bottom. I can't transfer all of my power to the right shields. So if that right shield goes down, and I'm taking damage from that right side, I still have 3 viable shield faces. So it's nice to be able to know I can shift my strafe directions to put those viable shield faces back into combat, into play.
Proximity alert. Head.
Yep, see you, Tritus.
Proximity alert. Head.
Where did Drafe go? Is he hiding?
He was kicked for inactivity.
Oh!
He was alt tabbed.
Oh, see you, Tritus. And see you in the forum.
Yep, see you, Inta. Alright, so the other thing I want to talk briefly about is weed manning. So weed manning, the typical way to do weed man, if you've got a buddy and you're in combat with them, the best thing to do is take them, highlight them with target friendly, pin them with the key J. Now they're pinned onto your HUD. Now you can always monitor their position. So if Scarge was an enemy target, he would be red, and I could see him as red. And then if I look, I can see that green arrow right there. That's telling me where Miss Hearts is. I can also look at my radar at the bottom here, which you guys can sort of see now. And you can see there's a 1. That's Miss Hearts. So I know where Miss Hearts is on my radar too. I can always turn and find Miss Hearts if I need to, because I can follow that green arrow. There's Miss Hearts. So it's actually pretty easy to track your Wingman that way. That's the first step to being able to follow and track your Wingman. The other thing is, I mean, Wingman tactics, there's not a lot of like formations and stuff in Wingman tactics that work super well right now, because it's really different from air combat maneuvers, where you can actually do coordinated maneuvers to sort of pin a target. You can't really do that so much in space because the rotation is so fast they can just spin around. But it's nice to be able to monitor your target, and communication is super important. Your target should tell you what they're shooting at. They should tell you, I think I'm getting shot at, and then you can actually check that for them. Remember we talked about how hard it is to figure out who's shooting at you sometimes. If your target, if Miss Heart says, I'm getting shot at, and I'm currently not getting shot at, I can go look at Miss Hearts and I can go, okay, who's shooting at Miss Hearts? I can look for incoming laser fire and I can try to figure out what's going on, and then I can pick up that target. What else am I missing about Wingman and Drafe?
Remember that you are two people fighting as. It's not going to be, okay, yeah, you're on the same team. One person goes after one guy, another person goes at the other guy. You shouldn't be trying to basically take people on one-on-one. Generally, what you want to do is focus a lot of your energy, a lot of your firepower on one person. You want to create situations where you have a numerical advantage in the small amount of space that you're occupying. Now, that's not to say that if you're if your flight lead is targeting one person and your wingman, he might not necessarily want to also shoot at him. Maybe you want to have that second person act as a lookout. So until if the person in the number one position is attacking, he's not getting shot at, maybe your wingman is just in more of a support position and he's keeping an eye out for incoming fire. And then as soon as your person in flight position number one gets shot at, then your wingman can start firing back, and then you can both start shooting at the target who's shooting at your flight lead. But if one person is getting shot at, you generally both want to shoot at that person. And if it's a situation where, say, you're both getting shot at, one person is getting shot at by a Hornet, the other person is getting shot at by an Aurora, Hornet's a bigger threat. Focus on killing that Hornet first. Both of you focus on killing that Hornet first. And then when the Hornet's gone, you can turn and shoot at that Aurora. The person who's getting shot at by the Aurora while shooting at the Hornet just has to keep in mind that they're getting shot at and they need to be changing directions and they need to be a little bit more evasive.
Yep, absolutely. And you absolutely can, Vimes is right. You can employ a lot of rope-a-dope tactics. And rope-a-dope tactics I like to call alpha-omega tactics. They're basically one person is using a lot of evasion, the other person is using a lot of offense. And you can drag targets into situations where they're really vulnerable, especially if you have one wingman who's getting shot by two targets and one wingman who's not getting shot at all. That wingman is going to have to start thinking about flying in a way that's pretty evasive, but not so evasive that your other wingman is having a hard time shooting. And that's where extending is really important. So if like Scarge is my wingman and Miss Hearts is my target, and Miss Hearts is shooting at me and firing at me and firing at me, and I'm like, this is bad. I want my wingman to take this kill. I don't need to take this kill. I'm going to extend past Miss Hearts, take off, let Miss Hearts chase me. But while Miss Hearts is chasing me, I'm going to have Scarge shoot Miss Hearts in that situation. This is a rope-a-dope tactic, and I'm going to be really evasive. I'm going to make myself a pretty hard target. And if Miss Hearts is completely focused on aiming, which a lot of pilots are, is completely focused on aiming, isn't necessarily trying to evade as much, she's going to be pretty vulnerable, especially in a big ship like a Hornet, to my wingman now. And there's lots of ways you can make this play out. There's lots of combinations you can do for this. If you have fast ships, you can use speed and drag somebody out in a linear line and use range as your defensive method. If you have a slower ship that's got pretty good maneuverability, you can use jukes and rolls and try and make yourself a pretty hard target. You can use asteroids and try to drag your target behind them. As long as your wingman is pretty close to your target, then you're pretty good. And that's actually one of the things you want to do here. So for instance, if Miss Hearts is my opponent and Scarge is my wingman, Miss Hearts is really far away from me. Scarge is really close to Miss Hearts. This is exactly the ideal situation I want. Miss Hearts is focused on me, but is 3,000 meters away from me. Scarge is focused on Miss Hearts and is 100 meters away from Miss Hearts. Advantage us. Even if there's two ships doing that, advantage us, because those ships are so far away they have a harder target. When do you use fire lasers versus use your missiles? I am not a good person to talk with missiles because I rarely use missiles.
Missiles make everything lag, so therefore I don't like missiles.
Situationally, missiles, typically, for most ships, not all ships, typically flares fire directly behind you. This is not true for all ships, though. But a good portion of them, they fire directly behind you. They also fire directly behind you if someone's is flying straight forward and is moving into motion. So if I'm flying straight forward and I fire a flare, and I look, I did that wrong. Hold on. Fire a flare, look behind me. You can see where the flare is. It's directly behind me. What that means is that's where the missile is going to go. So if I'm flying perfectly straight and I fire a flare to get rid of a missile, the missile is going to go in the direct behind position, which means if the person fires the missile directly at me, it's still going to hit me even if I flare. So one of the old tricks for missiles is if you've got a target and you're evading with them, and you've got them locked up in a missile lock. Do I have missiles? I do have missiles. So I've got Miss Hearts locked up in a missile lock, and I really want to get that missile hit. I'm going to back straight up, away from Miss Hearts, force her into a straight line towards me, and then fire that missile. That's going to be much harder for Miss Hearts to flare off, because she's flying straight at the missile, the flares are straight behind her. And boom, those missiles did hit and did shield damage there. That's one way to try and get a good missile hit. This is the case for all the missiles, including cross-section missiles. They're actually more accurate in that situation. So yeah, that's another way. Another way, like Vimes missions, is don't give your opponent a second. A great way, this is an old-fashioned trick with missiles, and Miss Hearts has actually done this. Miss Hearts has locked me up on a missile right now. And
Actually, no, that wasn't me.
Oh, that must have been Scarge then. So if I lock up Miss Hearts with a missile, she gets a tone. She knows I've got her into a lock. And right then, she's like, oh, here comes a missile. I'm not going to launch it. I'm going to keep Miss Hearts in view. I'm going to really work hard to keep Miss Hearts in view, keep that missile lock, keep going, and after a while, she's going to forget that I have the lock. Now, what you don't want to do is lose target. There I did. And there I actually launched a chaff. Keep her in target. What I want her to do is I don't want to lose a lock, but I want Miss Hearts to forget that I've got a missile lock. And then launch it close range. When I do that, because she wasn't expecting the missile because she forgot I had a lock on her, or she just wasn't expecting it because she's busy dogfighting, I launched that at a surprise close range, and there was a moment where it's like, oh crap, missile, I forgot about that, and it takes a second to get on and get those flares out, and if you launch them at pretty short range, it's pretty good, pretty likely you'll get a hit at that point. What's the difference between flare and chaff? Flare is what's supposed to be the difference. Flare is supposed to be good for EM and IR missiles. A flare produces an EM signature and an IR signature, which is higher than your ship, which means a missile's like, cool, I like that. I'm going to go get that instead. It'll eventually burn out, so a missile can relock onto you after it burns out, but that's how it's supposed to work. Chaff is supposed to create noise and somehow mask your radar signature and your cross-section signature, and it's supposed to mask CS missiles. It doesn't really work that way very well. So, generally speaking, you want to use flare most of the time. However, you can do some fun tricks with chaff, like for instance, I can make myself disappear off radar like that. I make everyone else disappear off radar. I can still see Miss Hearts, but I don't have a radar lock, and I can actually, as long as I'm popping chaff, I can hide in my own chaff cloud. And this is kind of a 201 tactic. I'll give you a preview of Dogfighting 201 here. Let's say I'm looking at a situation, I just spawned, or I'm in a spot, and I'm looking over and I'm like, oh, wow, there's 5 hives over there. They're 9,000, 10,000 meters away, and they're all flying towards me. I don't want to be in that fight. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to fly away from them. They're all chasing me. I've got allies that are somewhat nearby. I'm going to go over here behind this rock. I'm going to stop. I'm going to start popping chaff. Blink, I'm out of contact. They can't see me anymore. There's a lot of things they could assume happen. They could assume I hit the rock. They could assume I left. They could assume I quantum traveled. There's a lot of things they could do. Whatever it is, they're probably not going to keep chasing me. if anything, if any of them do, a minority of them will. So maybe I've taken those 5 targets and I've reduced it to 1 or 2. That's a better situation than 5. And then once my chaff fades off, I can reassess what's going on out here, and I can go, okay, yeah, I've changed that situation a little bit. So you can use chaff to change the dynamic of a fight, and break targets with the fight. Yeah, cross-section, what cross-section is using is sort of like radar, but it's basically like the physical cross-section of a ship. So typically the bigger the ship, the higher the cross-section. And you can actually kind of see that. Target Miss Hearts here. You can actually see the signature of her ship below the targeting bolt there. EM, that's her EM signature. IR, that's her IR signature. You can see how high those are. Miss Hearts, hold still for a second. Watch what happens to her cross-section signature when I shift from front to top. Or I meant to say, sorry, it didn't work that way. It used to work that way. If you get closer, it gets bigger. Because her ship's getting bigger. It's also used to get bigger if you went from front to top. Apparently that doesn't work quite as much anymore. Let me see if it still works.
It's another one of those game mechanics that just needs more fleshing out.
It works at close range. It doesn't work at long range. So if I'm pretty close... That's a little close. Her cross-section signature is huge now.
Interesting.
But you can see it actually gets smaller if I go to the back. Well, now it's doing all
It
kinds
does
of
on
weird
my
stuff.
screen, too.
It's weird. They're doing all kinds of weird stuff on this, actually. It seems like it's actually really big from the top, but really small from the bottom. So this might be a mechanic that needs a little fleshing out. That's how it's supposed to work, though. And that's how it used to work. I remember during the time when CS missiles were really, really popular, the Ghost used to be really hard to lock onto because it had such a low cross-section signature. But you could lock onto the Ghost if you got on top of it and you were at close range. You could still get a CS lock on this. So if you were flying the Ghost, which I did for a time period, you had to be really careful not to show your top and bottom to a ship.
Yeah, cross-section is, I mean, other than changing depending on how far or close you are, or what orientation you're looking at the ship, yeah, it should be a fixed value. Unless, you know, half your ship gets blown off, then you'll technically have a smaller cross-section.
Yeah, a ship just lose pieces, and I guess it would get a smaller cross-section.
I wouldn't use that as a strategic thing to evade cross-section.
Yeah, you really can't use it. Evading cross-section missiles is more like a bit of randomness. It's more like outflying the missile's fuel supply most of the time. And not necessarily actually creating a true evasion with cross-section missiles. And the signature section, the signature system is very, very incomplete. It's not currently functional, really.
It's supposed to work like that, Intho. There was a time when it worked a little bit better as far as disappearing from the radar if you turned off all your systems and lowered your ERs and lowered your signatures. Right now, I'm not exactly sure how well it's working.
Yeah, I don't think it works very well right now. I've tried some experiments with it, and it seemed like I was in the... What I did as an experiment, I went to the universe. I went to Korea, where everyone likes to attack the ships on the outside of Korea. I went about 8,000 meters away from Korea Station, the security outpost, in a Ghost, and then I shut off all my systems, and then I kept incrementally moving back to see if somebody could see me, because usually people would fly towards me if they could see me. And at 8,000 meters, with all systems shut down in a Ghost, people could still see me. And that didn't used to be the case. You used to be able to shut off your systems in a Ghost to get pretty close to a ship before they could see you. But also, you used to be able to do this. I used to be able to hide behind an asteroid, and I would drop the target. You can see the cross-section, I think, in the signature should probably still get lower, or maybe they got rid of that. They used to. Yeah, check with Scarch here. See what happens if I put an asteroid between us. Actually, we're probably too far away for that to work. But that used to be the case. I actually really liked that mechanic, but it did cause people to drop in and out target a lot. But it was nice to be able to hide behind a rock.
Proximity alert. Deck.
A lot of things work differently in the universe right now. Top speeds are functioning slightly differently in the universe. There's a lot of things going on with the universe that are different from Arena Commander, which makes it a little tricky to figure out what's supposed to be happening, what's not supposed to be happening.
Proximity alert. Head. Proximity
For instance,
alert.
I noticed if I took a Super Hornet and I outfitted it with 4 fixed guns, I could get my Super Hornet was doing a top speed of 240. Then when I went to the Universe, same ship, it was doing a top speed of 200. That's actually a pretty significant difference between Arena Commander and the Universe. And I don't know which one of those is right. I would assume Universe is right, but I don't actually know. We got about 20 minutes left. Any other questions?
If no one has questions, I was gonna suggest doing a quick squadron battle,
Proximity alert.
showing off some of this stuff.
Sure, we can do a squadron battle.
Rear shield under fire. Shields recharging.
First, I should read up my poll for tomorrow,
Shields recharging.
Oh yeah.
Proximity
Absolutely.
alert.
and then I should use the bathroom.
Absolutely.
Let me go back to the hangar here. Let's see. So what do we? How do you switch so fast between cruise and airplane? Is it bound to allow you to dogfight to evade? Yes. I do have it bound on my G13. It's one of my keys on my G13. Basically, it's just the V key, and I don't switch very quickly, but I do make sure I have the ability to switch quickly when I need to. And that's something that I need, just generally speaking, I need to practice more, is going into the universe to fight a bit more so that I can practice that. But can you make yourself, you can make yourself disappear from enemy radar by holding still and popping chaff so that it creates a cloud of noise around you, and then hiding in that noise. Now that's not permanent, it'll last about 5 seconds. And then you want to repop chaff to keep it going. But that's, right now, currently, that's the only way to completely hide off radar. Alright, so we'll put some of the stuff from yesterday up. Whaleman's suggestion for the lecture will still go up. Again, that'll only be an hour. I don't have a 3-hour lecture. If you're curious, what the lecture is I teach college sometimes, and this is an earth science lecture, but it's the origin of the solar system, the earth, and a little bit about the origin of the universe. Some people really wanted me to see that. I have no idea why people want to see that, but sure.
Because it's space.
And then we'll put the Avenger on the list too. Put the Connie on the list. Do a little multi-crew action. It'll be all universe. We won't be able to do any free flight or arena commander stuff with the Constellation. What's the fastest way to turn your ship 180 degrees? Honestly, decoupling does nothing right now. I think it probably could, but the fastest way to turn your ship 180 degrees is to full pitch, full yaw, and you'll do it. It'll go as fast as it can possibly go. There is not much of a way to speed it up. For some ships, like for instance the Cutlass, if you hit boost, it'll go faster. However, it's really difficult to control. But that's a very, very small minority of ships that you'll end up with a little bit faster rotation if you hit boost. Maybe you'll shave off a half a second with most ships. With the Cutlass, you'll shave off 4 seconds. It's insane. Oh, what else should be on the list for what to do tomorrow?
Pirating?
Yeah, I'll throw up pirating. Why not? So, lecture, Avenger, Connie, and pirating. Those are the options for tomorrow. Oh, no, Miss Hearts beat me. There's my YouTube channel. Alright, I'll be back in 1 second, guys.
I will be right back.
Okie dokie. Electra like a pirate. I'd like to see that. I think he should give a lecture about the dangers of pirating. You wouldn't download a bear. Yes, I would. You don't know me, Internet. Bear really shouldn't leave me to entertain his stream while he's away. Can't really do much to his stream.
Oh, that's true. Bear hasn't done the Benny challenge yet, has he?
What's the Benny challenge?
Moving the noodle machine, I think at Sping Hub, back to Port Olisar.
Oh. Huh. Cool.
I think that's what it is.
What's going
You haven't done the Benny challenge yet.
on? The Benny challenge. I don't have a lot of interest in the Benny challenge, to be honest. Looks kind of boring. Lecture like a pirate, Bayor. Okay. I don't know. I don't think I have a very good pirate voice. I'm not very good at doing impressions, to be honest. Unless it's a Gandalf impression, but that requires a lot of energy out of me.
A lot of energy and probably a lot of cracking.
Yeah, a lot of cracking too. Need for the Gandalf to come out. What do we got? What do you guys want to fly?
I'm gonna fly Merlin. Get invited.
Merlin. All right, I'm gonna grab the warden then.
I'm addicted to my infant.
I know.
Good thing to be addicted to.
Actually, I need to reset the lobby. That's a private lobby. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
What pirating means is, so I'm actually going to keep my running total for pirate. What it means is I have a certain amount of money that I have to earn, and I earn money by stealing ships, either by sneaking aboard their ships and stealing it when they get out of their ship, or by taking a cheap ship and finding a parked ship and stealing that. So I have to make profit by stealing ships, and then I deliver them to Pad D on Port Olisar. And every time I make a successful delivery, I add the value to that ship to my total. And that's basically my pirating career. And I think we're at about 630 UEC right now for my my pirating career. Yeah, Maverick, I am 100% with you, and I think most people who play a decent amount of the game are 100% with you. It would be really nice to be able to change to that HUD color. I don't know what I changed to. Actually, the Aegis HUD color is pretty good. That green is not bad. There's not a lot of green. The blue is what sucks. Let's try Deinstar. Any word on 2.2? No word yet. About a week ago, they said it would be a couple of weeks, though. They did say that about a week ago. So yeah, Lord Wellman has a pretty good estimate there. Later this month seems pretty good. I'm looking forward to that just because I'm hoping that the scout will be hangar ready and it'll be nice to climb in my spaceship.
Are we gonna use our brevity, Bayor?
That's a good question. It would confuse people if we used our brevity.
I don't.
Yeah, maybe because you did the Dogfighting 101, you shouldn't.
Yeah, I'll try to use other terms. We might accidentally slip into brevity, but I'll try to use other terms that are more direct and logical. There's only 3 minutes left in this. So the first time it is, I'm going to shift my shields right. I'm going to look for my Wingman. There's one. There's the other one.
Alright,
Alright, looking for targets. I'm going to target this ninja guy.
he's on you, it looks like. I'm gonna shoot him as well.
Who's in a name? Thank you for the follow.
Down he goes.
I think I have another person on me, maybe? Could be Doms. Missile lock. I'm gonna shoot at Doms.
Yeah, he's on you. I'm on him.
I don't have a lot of evasion options in this ship, so I'm actually going to just try and tank it.
Down he goes. Looks like you also have Viox on you. Viox.
So you guys can see that desync there. These are probably European server people, and you can see how much I have to lead to get on target.
Flash Viox.
I got a missile lock. That was a friendly missile.
Copy that. Westcliff is looking at you, I think.
Also got Claymore.
Clear.
Claymore's vanishing and targeting. I'm fighting Claymore.
Alright, I'm on.
Splash. Alright, everybody
This is
looks
one
clear.
thing that you guys can really use to your advantage if you ever fly
One
with
of you has locked on you.
Christmas hearts. I'm on 'em.
On.
Any kind of communication really helps. Flash.
Kill. Come on, Claymores.
You look clear. As far as you're clear. And guys, what I mean by clear is I don't see anyone shooting at me.
Okay, I'm on Ninja now.
Clear 7v5.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, we got 4 seconds.
Alright, so that was a brief match.
Yeah, started out 30,000 points behind there. But a whole lot you can do with that.
Yeah, not a lot. Not a lot that can happen there. So the weapons were the default weapons. I actually forgot to reset the weapons, and I usually would have, because it's hard to bring both those weapons to bear. The speed difference between the Apocalypse Gatlin and the 4M4As in the nose of the Vanguard is actually pretty hefty. So that's actually pretty difficult to bring those together there. What I would normally switch that to is an M6A, which I'd pull off either off the Connie, or I put a Panther on there, as is what McKetton does too. And that's pretty good. That's a pretty good grouping. Did you get a new mic? The volume is kind of low. Apparently I need to turn this up a little bit, because I've been hearing that a little bit. I'll move it closer and turn this knob here. There's also a
Yeah,
knob
we
back
are
here.
definitely overwhelming you volume-wise.
Vimes, thank you for the follow. Turn this up. I have no idea what I just did, but hopefully I got a little louder.
You sound louder.
Okay. I look louder too on my microphone set, so hopefully that helped.
Figure you just put on brighter clothes so you look louder.
Haha, what a funny guy.
I'll be here till 1 o'clock.
Alright, and 7. I'll toss you an invite.
Oh boy. Mr. Havoc.
Galdrin, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. I'll soon turn my music back on. You getting those, Mr. Havoc?
Now I got to turn the stream down.
You sound purplish blue with a tint of lemon. There we go. There's Havoc.
I thought it was Periwinkle Blue. Maybe that's a different.
Periwinkle blue. I'm gonna turn my music back on real quick.
No, that's not Periwinkle.
Pop over to always crowded, always busy, Dying Star.
The average Joe.
See you, Average Joe. Take care. Thanks for hanging out. Now, unfortunately, I could only pin 2 targets on the HUD. I really think they should add another target just because it's a natural to have 3 it's natural to have 3 wingmen, I think. since
Well,
that's
especially since you can put 4 people in your party.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So which one of you wants to be the odd man? I guess I don't have Havoc in here, so I'll make Havoc the odd man.
That's fair. I was gonna say, I'm probably not gonna get shot at all.
Well, I'm probably not either.
That's a good point.
Alright, I'm gonna pick up Mazdaj.
Yes.
So you guys can see what I mean by that pip grouping. I can be on cockpit here, and I'm just not going to get that pip on target very much. But you'll see when he slows down too much. So there he slowed down way too much. And he lost all of his momentum, and then you can see what happens when that happens. My pips merge.
I think you have Breaker on you, maybe?
Come on, it's okay. It's okay, I'm Jewish. That's a cute name. Getting shield alerts. I'm not sure if I'm getting hit. I'm also getting a tremendous amount of lag.
Yeah, pretty good.
I do have somebody on me.
Wait, you got Popka?
Pavka.
Okay, Popka.
Is he in a Merlin?
M50.
Okay. Well, he blew up. I'm gonna pick up Agent. Looks like ballistics on that.
Alright.
And having pip separation isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it can spread your aim out a little bit. But this is a little too much spread. It's too much spread if you're looking at the top section of a ship and you just can't get that second pip on target, even if you put it right on the nose. Which is the case here. I really can't get that second pip on target. And I'm trying to slow down. We don't want to merge with him. I have somebody on me, I think. Inbound missile.
Alright, checking your 6. It is probably...
I think I see him.
I got him. Popka again.
It's 2. I've got 2.
Alright, I'm engaging Popka.
Engaging. Maybe I should ignore that guy.
We also have...
I also have the Cutlass.
Mastad. Yep, I'm on Mastad.
I'm on Popka.
Wait, that's switching to Mast. He's got more guns. Okay, he's down. Back to Pavka. Again, you see me doing that roll there to set up that advantageous angle. Not super important with the M50, but I'll take it. I'll take what I can get with one of those. There he goes. Daman, it's okay.
Okay, it's on me.
Alright. I feel like I'm getting hit a lot, but I think I'm moving through a lot of friendly fire. There he goes.
Yeah, I think that's all it is.
It's one of those things, the bigger your ship is, the more likely you are to move through friendly fire, because you're just likely to get hit. Mazda's my current. See, when he lines up, I'm going to unload with the Gatlin, too. Really can
5
see...
other people.
What's that?
Still were 5 other people. You got Popka on you again.
Copy. No, it doesn't look like he's on me.
I thought he was.
Can't quite see who he's on. If he's not on any of you guys, I'm gonna swap out. I got a missile lock sound. I'm on Breaker. There he goes, splash. I'm on Agent 0. Okay, so these guys are heavily outnumbered. I'm going to go ahead and sit out. They were making a big mistake, though. Even when they had 5 or 6 of them on the same team, they were doing exactly what I mentioned earlier, where they were all coming in single file. Just one at a time, and then we're this big cluster of targets, or of enemies right here, and we're all focusing fire whoever's closest to us. You don't want to start doing that. That's... And that's
We're
one of the
82.
Yeah, they started leaving, I think, because they were 5 or 6 versus 8, but they were just running in single file and getting annihilated.
Contact. Begin scan.
Also, since since Bayor is pretty much acting as flight lead right now, I was just trying to watch his 6, and I was only shooting at someone if someone shot at him first. Other than that, I'm just trying to keep him aware of what's going on. People were dying so quick, you didn't really see too much of that. But mainly in this position, I want to keep him aware of what's going on, and keep him aware, especially when he's getting shot at.
Right, and since I'm flight lead, I kind of rely on them to let me know, like, hey, I think I'm getting shot. If that ever happened, I don't think that happened too much. I would have immediately disengaged, looked for who was shooting at them, and then figured out who that was, let them know who it was if they hadn't figured it out yet, and then trying to help with that target. Those are just really basic Wingman stuff, but that's easy to do. I mean, you can do that at any point. It doesn't require a whole lot of advanced communication. You're just trying to figure out your target. And I can see Havoc has blue eyes.
Hey, hey, what are you guys doing? What are you doing? Hi.
Proximity alert.
Hey, one of you open up your hatch. I want to see if I can fit the Merlin.
Proximity alert.
That's so cute, you two.
Contact. Begin scan.
It's like otters.
There we go, and they've all left. We're over time and stream. Look at that, Havoc 4-1. I got 4-0. Miss Hart's got 1,400 points. Drafe got 1,300.
Bringing up the rear.
It was a short match, though. Friends. Oh, that would be so nice, Stealth Fighter. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Although, to be honest, the button real estate is kind of heavy right now. This game needs a lot of buttons. And,
It could be something that switches between target that's on you and friend's target.
yeah. That would be very nice. I would indeed like that. All right, let's see what we're doing tomorrow. And then we will close out for the day. Good game, guys.
Mm-hmm. Fun stuff. Joining us there, Havoc.
Ta-ta.
You should make more hilarious videos.
His videos are hilarious. If you ever make a new video, come tell me on stream, and I will show it on stream when it's first come out. I like showing off my buddies' videos on stream. It's a tie between Lecture and Connie right now.
Sure.
If someone has wants to cast the a few more votes, if you haven't voted yet, cast the tiebreaker.
Oh.
Grr, editing. I know, man. If I had more time, I would do a lot more editing with my stream videos and make videos, but oh, it takes so long. I actually think streaming is easier than editing.
Yeah.
It'll be available on YouTube. I'll put this stream up on YouTube. This is definitely a YouTuber. It'll be long, but you can go back to certain parts of it and see.
Well,
You
if
can
you
also-
need a tiebreaker, you can do both the lecture and the Connie.
That is an
Get in the Connie and do the lecture.
that is an extremely good point. Well, my lecture has slides. There we go. Lecture has taken over. So we'll do the lecture, and then, yeah, because the lecture won't take up the whole time. We'll do the Connie the rest of the time, so technically we can definitely do both. So, yeah, that's interesting. You guys are strange to me right now. But, yeah, so tomorrow what we'll do is we'll play in the Connie for, I don't know, we'll say we'll play in the Connie for about an hour, and then we'll, about 11 o'clock, we'll hop on, and I'll bring up my Prezi, and I will do the lecture on the origin of the solar system, of the Earth, and of the universe. Mostly on the origin of the Earth and the first time periods of Earth, because it was an Earth science class. So we'll do that. It'll be fun. I'll have to actually go see if I remember that lecture. Minor details. All right, thanks to everybody who followed. Thanks to all of the fantastic new subscribers. Who subscribed to me today? I'm curious. So I can thank them. I got subscribers. I'm so excited about that.
It's true. He sent me a text the other day.
Foible and Average Joe were my subscribers today. Thank you, Foible, and thank you, Average Joe, for subscribing. Much appreciated. Thanks, everybody who flew with me. Thanks to people who helped, Average Joe, Drafe, and Miss Hearts. And, of course, people who flew some combat with me, which is Miss Hearts, Drafe, and In7. Hopefully we'll do that again sometime soon. It's Saturday, no class, a bit hungover, best time for lecture. Well, technically it'll be a Sunday lecture, which is even better. You're definitely hungover on Sunday. All right, guys, I will be back on tomorrow, so I hope to see you then. Take care.
Later.
See you tomorrow.